Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. The Journey in Marvel Magician. Chapter 1. Marvel Universe, New York, Chinatown. On the roof of a 5-story house that looks a little old along the street, an Asian young man of about 20 years old wears white short sleeves on his upper body and blue and white jeans on his lower body. Before buying the barbecue grill, with a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, the young man's right hand flipped the T-bone steak on the grill from time to time. It was only the steak that was burnt on the black side but still bloodied to tell us that the young man's attention was not on the steak. The youth looked blankly at the left hand holding a bottle of beer. Definitely, the youth was not looking at cheap beer, but the one worn on the index finger and middle finger of his left hand. The two circles were connected by a long piece of brass-colored metal. Weird ring with ring. Although the ring is weird, the young man knows that this brass ring has a famous name in this world: sling ring. For a long time, a burnt smell made the young man turn his attention to the steak. The young man curled his mouth and put down the fork that turned over the grilled steak. What else would you eat if it was all battered? Carrying a beer, the young man squatted in the corner, touching his belly, with a bit of bitterness at the corner of his mouth, and said to himself, 2 years in this world, the soul and the body are finally perfectly integrated, even if caught by someone in the magician holy place, I'm afraid I can't see the clues in the spirit body. Recalling that 2 years ago, when the young man first came to this world, his face was overwhelmed. He was neither struck by lightning nor fell into the sewer. He just slept. When he thought he was about to get up to wash for work, he found himself lying down on the hospital bed. Beside him was a black nurse who was busy changing the medicine for the patient next door. The young man thought he was in a physical condition, but he didn't think much about it, but subconsciously thought that a black nurse came to the hospital, and that was all. The young man said feebly, "Then, yes, take it." As soon as the voice fell, the young man immediately realized that there was something wrong with him. He who had spoken Chinese all his life suddenly changed a normal tone of, "Where is this?" into the funny feeling of a foreigner learning to speak Chinese with his tongue. When the black nurse heard the young man's words, he subconsciously turned his head to look at the young man and shouted, "Oh Maga." Then a string of English that the young man could not understand was exploded. The youth was stunned for a moment. "Sister black nurse, except for the first sentence I understand. You said that I didn't understand a single sentence afterwards. Don't you know that the English test I took since I was a child did not exceed 20 points? Also, if you have gone abroad to work, can you stop using your own mother tongue? There is a way that you speak Chinese." Seeing the nurse who had been speaking English, the young man had a desire in his heart. He wanted to teach the black nurse tongue twisters, such as the red carp and the green carp on the donkey, in return for his hard-working 29 letters. Watch the big feud. ... It seems that something is wrong. Oh, there are only 25 letters, it doesn't seem to be right. With his little confused eyes open, the youth struggled. There are a few English letters in the alphabet. The young man finally gave up thinking and whispered in a weird spoken language, "Don't care about it, anyway, I have returned the content to the physical education teacher." Seeing the young man's dumb face and slurred speech, the nurse hurriedly stopped her work in shock and ran out of the ward to find a doctor. She felt that the young man sent from the scene of the car accident could still be rescued. At least she didn't feel that the young man had already been rescued. Regain consciousness. Didn't even the ability who spoke without seeing the other person recover? Seeing the black nurse who hurriedly pushed out the door, the young man subconsciously wanted to reach out his right hand to touch his dizzy forehead, only to find that although his brain gave instructions, his right hand touched his forehead 2 seconds later. What happens? The body can still experience delays or network freezes, or is this just my disease? It's not that my procrastination has evolved into a procrastination. Is there any cure for this disease? As long as the treatment is good, I swear to the lights in the hospital that I will never delay doing things in the future. The young man with a dumb face was still immersed in regret. The door of the ward was pushed open again. Only a white man wearing a doctor's white coat walked quickly to the young man's side, opened his eyelid with one hand, and raised his small. The flashlight shot the young man's eyeballs indiscriminately. The young man whose eyes were dazzled wanted to push away the white man's hand, but it was a pity that his hand slowly grabbed the doctor's hand after 2 seconds and said, "Salt dizziness." Well, a changed sentence. I'm dizzy, and the normal response of the pupils let the doctor make sure that the young man in front of him has awakened. As for the slurred language, he will not be in charge of it. That is the brain doctor's responsibility. The doctor said in fluent English, Mr. Li Feng, is there anything else you feel uncomfortable? Li Feng was stunned. The name is indeed my name, but brother, which hospital is this? How come I speak all English, except for my name, I don't understand a word of English. Seeing that Li Feng had no response, the doctor turned his head and said to the black nurse behind him, has his brain CT been done? The nurse nodded and said, it is already on the brain doctor's desk. Hesitation, the nurse rolled his eyes and Li Feng continued, the police are still waiting to ask Li Feng, do you want them to come in? The doctor pondered for a while, turned his head and looked at Li Feng with a confused face, and shrugged, although I don't think the police can ask anything at the moment, let's give the police 5 minutes to ask questions. Remember to remind the police that the patient needs a rest. After that, the doctor turned and left. The patients were all awake. Why did he stay in the ward? You know that he is very busy. There is more than one injured person in this car accident. After a while, Li Feng silently watched the 2 fat police officers walk into his ward behind the black nurse. What happened? After I fell ill, my family sent me abroad for treatment. Why are all foreigners? A policeman pulled a chair and placed it in front of Li Feng. After sitting down, he took out the folder and said, Li Feng, whose English name is Austin, is a second-generation Chinese born in New York. His parents died in an accident last year. The information is correct, right? Another policeman standing at the end of the bed with a trace of apology on his face, drew a circle with his right hand in front of his face, and said, I'm sorry Mr. Li Feng, my colleague has facial blindness for Asians, so I need to ask your basics information to confirm that it is you. Li Feng didn't care what they were asking, he only knew that he didn't understand a word except, Li Feng. Realizing that he is abroad, Li Feng said in crappy Chinese awkwardly, sorry, I don't understand what you are talking about. The 2 policemen were stunned. They heard that Li Feng was speaking Chinese, but they didn't know what it meant. The policeman holding Li Feng's information flipped through the information in his hand, glanced at his colleague inexplicably, and said, there is no record of Li Feng going abroad, nor does it show that Li Feng's previous school had Chinese courses. It is estimated that it was taught by his dead Chinese parents. After finishing speaking, the policeman who was looking through the information looked at Li Feng with a bad look. Do you seem to be literate in front of me and in Chinese? At this time, the patient lying next to Li Feng said to the policeman, he said he didn't understand what you were talking about. The 2 policemen looked at each other speechlessly. Don't understand. You said that you are a second-generation Chinese who has never gone abroad. You are listening and writing in English every day. Tell me now that you don't understand. What a joke. The nurse next to her was also taken aback. She seemed to understand something, and hesitation said to the policeman hesitation. Li Feng injured his brain in the car accident. Will it cause amnesia because of this? Amnesia made him forget English, but remember Chinese. Faced with the police's incomprehension, the nurse said that she couldn't explain it. Who can tell about the amnesia? Under the translation of Li Feng's patient, Li Feng understood that the reason why he was lying on the hospital bed was because he had a car accident 2 hours ago. But Li Feng was very confused. He didn't remember that he was in a car accident, and what is meant by that my parents died in an accident last year, how are my parents? When the patient translated that Li Feng was only 18 years old and was a second-generation Chinese descent, Li Feng suddenly understood what happened to him. Li Feng looked calm on the surface, and shouted in his heart, my soul traveled across the ocean to New York, and then borrowed a corpse to recover it. Saying that there are souls in this world, do zombies really exist? What else is there in the world? It seems that I have a soul. Great discovery. But amnesia is indeed a good excuse to deal with the police, and I have a doctor who proves that I hurt my brain, and the police can't help me, but as long as I leave the hospital and return to China, is it important that the amnesia does not matter? How about speaking English? I can still buy groceries. There is no need to continue the questioning. Don't let Li Feng tell him where he lives. The other party has lost his memory to the point that he can't even speak English. What else can the 2 police officers do? Break Li Feng's mind to see if there is any memory of a car accident in it. Before the 2 police left, considering the seriousness of Li Feng's amnesia, they made a copy of Li Feng's information and gave it to Li Feng, leaving a business card, and said under the patient's translation, "If you remember anything, please call us." The accident was serious, so for us, the more witnesses' testimony, the better. A few days later, the doctor said that Li Feng could be discharged from the hospital. As for when the lost memory will be restored, the doctor said that he is not clear, maybe it will be tomorrow, maybe it will never be restored. However, Li Feng said that he didn't care about the lost memories, and he didn't want to continue living in New York. Li Feng, who didn't want to stay in the hospital for a moment, changed his gown on the spot and left the hospital. At the entrance of the hospital, Li Feng stopped a taxi and pointed the home address given by the police to the taxi to see if he had an opportunity, indicating where he was going. Along the way, the taxi driver kept saying something. Li Feng smiled at first and said that he didn't understand it until he saw a photo of Stark Industrial Park in the newspaper left by the previous passenger. Li Feng realized that something was wrong. He had seen this picture. He remembered clearly that Tony in Iron Man 2 took this industrial park template home from Xiaojiao's office, and discovered and created new elements from it, which thoroughly cured his own palladium poisoning. After swallowing, Li Feng smiled and pointed at the photo and said to the taxi driver, "Tony Stark." The driver turned his head and glanced at the photo, thinking that Li Feng was asking himself when the fair would open, and he smiled and nodded and said, "Yes, the Stark Group's arms fair opens on time on Tuesday. Do you want to attend it, sir?" He didn't remember how Li Feng got off the car and how he got home. He only knew that there was a Stark Group in this world. Sitting slumped on the sofa in the bedroom, Li Feng looked at the Captain America poster on the wall. If Li Feng came to another world, and there happened to be a Stark company in this world, he said that he could understand it, but if there are Tony and Captain America in this world, there is nothing more to do. This is a perfect Marvel universe. That purple sweet potato essence is a dangerous world where half of the people are killed by snapping their fingers. Li Feng's mind is very messy. In the original world, he has a loving wife and a child who has begun to babble. To be honest, if there is a choice, he would rather post money to transfer the opportunity to travel. He is not Long Aocean, and he has no plug-in and system. He can't and dare not act as a hero in this Marvel universe without Goldfinger. He is just an ordinary person who cannot be ordinary. He only hopes that he can return to the original world and hear the child call himself, Dad. For a long time, Li Feng smiled bitterly and returned to the room, preparing to pack his luggage and return home. He has no choice. Compared to New York, where the dangers are wave after wave, as an ordinary person, he feels much safer in his motherland. And with his understanding of future development, he feels that he can develop in the direction of real estate. If you can't be a real estate tycoon, you can also be a charterer who will have no worries about food and clothing in this life. Maybe you can find a wife from a previous life to continue your relationship. Tony has several years to become Iron Man, so it's almost 20 years before the purple sweet potato essence snaps his fingers. Even if he is dead, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I can be resurrected with the efforts of those superheroes in 5 years. When that 5 years are amplifying fake. While planning what he was going to do after returning to China, Li Feng walked into the parents' room with his body. He wanted to see if there was anything valuable in the room so that he could sell it and use it as the starting capital for his return to China. In order to raise more funds, Li Feng looked for a careful one, for fear that he had missed something like a safe because he did not accept the memory of his predecessor. Not to mention, Li Feng really found some good things on the back of the desk in his parents' study, and it was a good thing for him to change his plan to return to China. A sling ring, a spell note written in Chinese, and a diary that explains the principles of the spell in detail. When Li Feng found sling ring and recognized what it was at a glance, he was still a little confused, and some could not believe that one of the parents of his predecessor was magician. Although in Li Feng's eyes, the magician of the Marvel world is actually just a monk who uses mana. A magician who can't even make a fireball dare to call himself a magician. Even if the magician Gandalf in close combat, the skill points are all used in physique, but he at least used an illumination technique to blind the opponent's eyes. What about you? Except for the Ancient One who has lived for so many years, and has absorbed power from the dark space, who can throw the spell out of his hand, what about the remaining magician? Except that the portal is released by these magicians in the air, what kind of magic can be left out of the body? As a magician's iconic spell, Fireball, except for a few big guys who can use it, what about the remaining magician? On the handshake of the magic shield and the handshake of the air blade, the fighting is a magician with a strong melee style. Do you want to carry forward Gandalf's melee spirit? Tukao, Li Feng still wears the sling ring on his right hand with a grin. He clearly remembers that Mordo said in the movie, the proficient use of sling ring is very important in spells. It can help us to travel freely in various universes. Quote, although in the movie, Li Feng only saw magicians use the portal as a means of transportation when traveling on the Earth, and not used to travel to other universes, but, how to say it is an extraordinary prop, should I go to Kathmandu? Taj went to the Ancient One Master. Seeing that one of his parents is a magician, maybe Ancient One can accept me as a disciple. After wearing sling ring, Li Feng opened the diary left by his parents at the desk. For a long time, Li Feng felt a headache. The diary was his parents'. It was true, but the real owner of the diary was his grandfather. The diary also stated that the predecessor's grandfather only learned 3 kinds of spells because of his aptitude. He finally died of old regret. As for his parents, although his grandfather had taught a little bit, his aptitude was worse than his grandfather, so he naturally gave up learning spells. Li Feng was a little helpless. Although he wanted to be a powerful magician, according to his grandfather's diary, Li Feng had also been taught by his grandfather when he was a child, but his aptitude was better than his father, and his ability to learn spells was still worse than his grandfather's. In the words of his grandfather, it would be nice to be able to learn 2 spells in this life. Li Feng rubbed his forehead and thought about it, and decided that he was still trying to practice for a while. After all, the body was still the same body, but the soul had changed. Maybe he had good aptitude now. Close the diary of the heart calendar which records how Grandpa worked hard to practice spells, and Li Feng opened the spell notebook. In the notebook, 3 spells of Grandpa's club were recorded. Portal, Mirror Space, and Spirit Body. From the diary, Li Feng already knew the importance of the spirit body to the practice of magic. Magician wants to release the spell successfully. In addition to the need to concentrate, he also needs his own mana cooperation. Although ordinary people have mana in their bodies, they are too weak, so weak that they can't sense them at all, while spiritual bodies are different. Not only can they strengthen themselves to sense mana, they can also allow magician to absorb energy from various universes. It can be said that being out of the body is a necessary skill for magician. Li Feng lowered his head and carefully read the spiritual practice methods every word. It was about the future, so he couldn't be too careful. For a long time, Li Feng, who was trying to practice spiritual body out of his body, had an inexplicable sense of familiarity, probably because of the physical memory of his predecessor's previous practice. It's strange to say that others don't talk about passing through various gold fingers, but it's good to him, don't say without gold finger, even the memory of the predecessor. Fortunately, his grandpa's notes were written in Chinese, otherwise he might miss the opportunity to become a magician. Whoever makes him a scumbag would not be able to spend time translating the English version of the notes. After another while, a transparent Li Feng stood up from the chair. Without waiting for Li Fengwan and roared to celebrate himself 3 times before letting the spirit out of his body, he looked at his belly and his body motionless on the chair in confusion. The physical body is still that physical body, but the appearance of the spirit body is not the physical appearance of Li Feng. His small belly has reminded him that his spirit body is the appearance of Li Feng in the previous life. The spirit-shaped Li Feng still has a feeling that his connection with the physical body is slowly disconnecting. If the spiritual body does not return to the physical body before the connection is broken, he will completely lose the physical body, become a lonely ghost, or return to a foreign land. Li Feng didn't dare to continue thinking, hurriedly let the spirit body return to the flesh, and his face was pale and immersed in the knowledge about the spirit body, hoping to find some clues to solve the current doubts. At the same time, he also put out his plan to go to Kamataj. As far as his spiritual body and physical body do not match, he has guarded Ancient One from the invasion of Otherworld for his whole life. It is strange not to pinch his neck and ask him what species he is. No clue was found in the spell notes, but Li Feng found a record of the spiritual body in his diary. The spirit body is the projection of the soul. What the soul looks like, the spirit body naturally looks like, and the body and the soul are closely related to each other. So from the side, what the soul grows, the body looks like, and vice versa. Li Feng constantly pondered the closely related and mutually influencing words, and said to himself, my soul is an uncle with a small belly, which is not like the body at all, which causes my current connection with the body to be very weak, so my reaction was so slow when I was awake in the hospital. After these few days of cultivation, my reaction is still slow, but it is still within the normal range, so under the mutual influence of my body and soul, I constantly strengthen the connection between the two. In this way, after a while, my soul will also become a youthful state, and at that time my spirit body will not emerge, and the two will be disconnected. It just doesn't accelerate the aging of the physical body, right? After all, my soul is also affecting the physical body, probably not. Compared to the physical body, the existence of the suspected energy of the soul is easier to change. Thinking of this, Li Feng scratched his head and decided that before the soul is fully integrated in the physical body, it is better not to get out of the spiritual body. Opened the magic notebook and looked at the contents of the basic practice in the notebook. Li Feng studied it word by word. After studying Li Feng carefully, he did not notice that shortly after his spiritual body came out, a black magician wearing a long robe sensed the fluctuation of the spell and hurriedly hurried to Li Feng's residence. He looked at Li Feng from a distance and breathed a sigh of relief. Magician knew that it was Li Feng who was Lao Li's grandson, and he practiced for a while when he was a child, but he was forced to give up because of his poor aptitude. Magician grinned and muttered, I rushed to you when I received the alert, but it turned out that you, the little guy, was making trouble. Magician shook his head, turned and left and mumbled, as long as it is not the invasion of otherworld creatures, the little guy is interested in spells, and there is no tutor to teach you, your future, ha ha. At this time, Li Feng, who was constantly studying the basics, seemed to realize what he had made. The three holy places on the earth were not fuel-efficient lamps. He could monitor the mana fluctuations of the entire world. Realizing this, Li Feng got up and prepared to close the window. Unfortunately, the slow response came again. Ma Dan, I just got out of my body for a few seconds, why is the network stuck again? Also let people not play games. A few days later, Li Feng will buy everything he can sell. If he doesn't sell it, what can he do with his delayed body? Without a job, there is no source of income. What kind of magic does he practice? The most important thing is that he can't even speak a word of English. What kind of job is he looking for? If you don't sell your wealth, why don't you drink Northwest Wind? Magician can't just drink Northwest Wind to fill his stomach, right? I'm talking, he is not a magician now. In New York, is there a suitable place for Li Feng, who does not speak English, to survive? After thinking for a few seconds, Li Feng took all his property and rented a small single room in Chinatown. And this stay is 2 years. In the past 2 years, Li Feng did some groceries during the day to earn pocket money and learn English. After returning to the small single room at night, he studied the basics of spells and continued to meditate in order to speed up the progress when he officially practiced spells in the future. A suitable environment really helps people learn. Just like Li Feng, he walked out of Chinatown for 2 years and wandered out of Chinatown. All he heard and saw was English. Together with his physical memory, he had long been fluent in English. Sometimes Li Feng laughed at himself. If I had to study so seriously during the college entrance examination, let alone apply for Tsinghua University and Peking University, I would be able to pass the test of the Earth and out of the galaxy. In 2 years, not only made Li Feng completely accustomed to life in New York, but also made his soul and body completely integrated. I was worried that physical aging under the influence of the soul of the uncle did not happen, but Li Feng lowered his head and touched his belly, and the corners of his mouth twitched and muttered, it's still you who treat me best. Does this mean that you are my true love? Li Feng laughed at the fat in his abdomen and it felt good to love him, while getting up and returning to the small single room. Drinking beer and grilling steak on the rooftop is to celebrate the thorough integration of the soul and the body. Since the wine is also drunk and the steak is burnt, it is natural that Li Feng should go downstairs and do business. Returning to the small single room less than 30 square meters, Li Feng took a deep breath after closing the doors and windows. While he was highly concentrated, he stretched his hands forward and slowly drew a circle. Unfortunately, the magic in his imagination didn't even have a spark. In this regard, Li Feng is not discouraged. He didn't know how many times he tried to cast spells before. It is his normal operation that no magical sparks appear. In recent months, as the soul and body integrate, occasionally appear when casting spells. Give a spark to comfort the patience that is about to be lost. After practicing for half an hour, Li Feng suddenly felt a rhythm in the energy. He had an intuition. As long as he flicked a few times along the flow of energy, a perfect practice cast was completed. Thinking of this, Li Feng hurriedly converged, and stretched out his hands again to sign in front of him. First, a 50 centimeters long orange light appeared between his hands, and then as Li Feng drew a circle with both hands, the orange light drew a sparkling circle. Before Li Feng showed a smile on his face, the orange-yellow circle turned into a little spark and dissipated in the room. Although the final spell failed, Li Feng still grinned. At least there is progress, and it is not an ordinary progress. As long as I fully grasp the rhythm of this energy, I will be able to successfully cast the spell. Regarding the sling ring on his left hand and the figure wearing monk costumes on the computer surveillance screen, Li Feng cross-legged on the ground to recall the charm of this energy. As for the surveillance screen, he stands on the top of a building in the distance and observes his holy place. Magician, Li Feng just didn't see it. Li Feng himself didn't know how many times the opponent appeared after he cast the spell. Anyway, Li Feng found the opponent's figure more than 3 times. As for the number of surveillances that he didn't find, I'm afraid there would be more. After a while, Li Feng opened his eyes, looked at the surveillance screen helplessly, and mumbled, "Going. There is a magician holy place in New York, and they can always find my mana fluctuations in the first place. But they knew that I didn't come to contact me. Did they see my dead grandfather, or did they feel that my ability was too poor and there was no need to contact me? Or just pure surveillance? As long as I'm not like Cassia falling into darkness, they don't care about me." At first it was because of the abnormality of the spirit body that you were afraid that you would find out and wanted to avoid you, but now that you are not looking for me, then I will find an opportunity to go to Kathmandu to find you. After finishing his thoughts, Li Feng scratched his forehead and continued to practice his casting process. With the first successful spellcasting, the subsequent spellcasting is as simple as opening the Rendu meridian. After only a few practice sessions, Li Feng consciously can successfully condense the mana outside his body in a quiet environment. If there is noise, Li Feng said that he still needs to practice more. As for fighting, stop making trouble. He needs a quiet environment to cast spells now. It's still early to move spells in battle. For a long time, Li Feng sat on the bedside, holding a bunch of beautiful pictures of various countries. Now that the casting practice is over and all that is left is practice harder, he felt it was time to practice the portal spell. In his previous life, he had the desire to travel as soon as he wanted to. Unfortunately, the wallet in his pocket held him back and pointed to the nappy milk powder of his wife and children to prevent him from turning his ideas into reality. In this life, although he has gained extraordinary powers and has the opportunity to collect 6 infinite gems to start his way home, he hasn't collected them yet. And now that you can use the portal, you can travel to various countries without buying air tickets and applying for a visa. Why do you want to feel wrong? At least, it doesn't matter if you wander around the world before going home, anyway. Before Iron Man came out, the Marvel world was still safe for him, who was armed with spells, as long as he didn't get into the battlefield where the cannonballs were flying. Picking out a photo of an abandoned train station from a bunch of photos, Li Feng grinned and began to practice the portal spell. Li Feng didn't know exactly where the photo address he picked came from. He only knew that there was no one near the abandoned train station and the surrounding environment was good. As for whether the magician of the magician holy place would come to arrest him after he was sent there, he didn't at all worry. The spell comes from his grandfather. It can be said clearly. I am not afraid that Kamataja's people say he is a thief. The soul has been integrated with the body, and Ancient One has no flaws. What else does he have to worry about? What if he is caught? Maybe I can go to Kamataj to learn more spells. Big deal, the travel plan has been stranded for a while. While muttering, Li Feng stared at the photos and kept constructing the abandoned train station in the photos. In the casting of the portal, you can only open the portal quickly if you have a detailed look of where you want to go in your mind, otherwise there will only be a circle of sparks in front of you. An abandoned train station in Argentina is exactly the address in Li Feng's photo. In this abandoned train station, Elias Starr is doing the final inspection of the quantum channel equipment. When Starr and Pym were studying quantum science together in S.H.I.E.L.D., Pym accused him of the wrong research direction, expelled him and vilified his reputation. Now, Stan will bet on everything to refute Hank Pym with his own research results. As long as he succeeds, Hank Pym's false accusations against him will disappear, and he will regain his original reputation. After checking the equipment, Starr opened the quantum channel with excitement, but after a while he discovered something was wrong. He didn't know what went wrong and the equipment was about to explode. Although Starr was frightened, he felt that the quantum channel could still be rescued, and after ordering his wife and daughter to leave immediately, he resolutely returned to the device for the final struggle. It's a pity that everything is over, the explosion will still explode. On the other side, Li Feng finally constructed a scene of an abandoned train station in his mind, and finally a portal appeared in front of him. Not waiting for Li Feng to be proud that he was also a magician who was able to open portals, and when he was a genius who succeeded a few times, the stable portal suddenly jittered, and then the original orange portal turned blue and white, and he could see the opposite side. The aperture of the scene also becomes a light curtain. Li Feng is a little confused. What is the situation? How did the said good portal become like this? Before Li Feng recovered, a violent shockwave came from the blue and white portal. This shockwave not only pressed Li Feng's face firmly to the wall, but also moved the portal towards Li Feng. In the end, the light curtain in the portal completely wrapped Li Feng and quickly disappeared, leaving only the white short-sleeved blue and white jeans Li Feng was wearing today, as well as flip-flops and boxer briefs. Before Li Feng knew what had happened to him, he was wrapped in a white light and passed through various imaginary bubble worlds, but he felt that he was stuffed into a certain rubber pipe, and he didn't know where the outlet of the pipe was. After a while, Li Feng, who was squeezed out by the rubber pipe, knelt on the ground and vomited bitterly. "Maiden, what the hell is my portal? He said that one step is another country. How come I am not stepping, but it is squeezed out, so the portal is a cow, I am the milk, it can be squeezed out. It hurts all over. I am not using the portal to travel anymore. This stuff can easily cause shadows in my heart." When Li Feng felt that his bile was about to vomit, an old man behind him reached out and helped Li Feng and said, "Sir, are you okay?" In the old man's surprised eyes, he found that his hand went straight through Li Feng's body, as if Li Feng did not exist in front of him, but a three-dimensional projection. The old man subconsciously thinks this is some kind of street funny art, and he looks up to find nearby cameras and other equipment. After all, in his eyes, funny people must observe his ugliness nearby. For example, he is scared by Li Feng and thinks the other party is a ghost or something. Supernatural existence. Not to mention, the old man really found something abnormal. For example, on the top of his head, an urn was smashing at him quickly. What kind of trick is this, trying to scare me? I don't know if Lao Tzu is famous for being brave, it's just a projection. Different from the old man who calmly watched the urn hit him, Li Feng also found his unusual place. First of all, he felt the pain of being torn apart, and there was nothing except the sling ring on his left hand. Not to mention clothes, not even shorts. Okay, portal, you won. You shouldn't be called a portal, you should be called an undressing artifact, special. Not only did Li Feng have a thick face, he was very thick, and he directly endured the pain of a tear in his body, clutching his crotch and got up to check the surrounding situation. If possible, Li Feng would like to find a piece of clothing first, but a newspaper is not enough. At least he should cover his face first. He doesn't want a photo of him to appear in the news tomorrow, or a photo with a clear facial expression. "Sir, can you give me a dress?" Feeling a little cold, Li Feng asked the old man for a piece of clothing in doubt, and followed the old man's gaze to the sky. He clearly remembered that it was summer. Why did it turn into winter as soon as he exited the portal? There is also the sky. What is the situation of a guy with black smoke crawling out of it while an urn is smashing at him quickly? The scene before him made Li Feng a little familiar. Turning his head, Li Feng mumbled, it seems that there is such a scene in the Magician Apprentice movie. I remember that it was Merlin's 3 apprentices. I was detained in an urn during the fight a year ago. 10 years later, Hafiz took the lead in coming out of the urn, and then determined that Barstow was still in the urn and dropped the urn from the tall building, hoping to break the urn and detain him in a different space. To be honest, when Li Feng watched this movie, he was puzzled. There were several opportunities for Barstow to kill Hafiz, but Barstow didn't kill Hafiz, and the opposite was true for Hafiz. Full of enthusiasm, a look like falling in love and not wanting to kill. Li Feng, who had already suspected that he had crossed again, grinned, and while clearly looking at Bastow's expression, he quickly stretched out his left hand to aim at Bastow, and his right hand kept drawing circles in front of him to cast unskilled portal spells. He wanted to save the opponent before Barstow escaped from the urn himself, so as to get close to the opponent and achieve the mystery of learning how to rub a fireball from the opponent. Definitely, if he can, he still wants to learn more, such as how to portray Merlin's magic circle. It is a good thing that can help him gather energy and help him speed up the practice of spells. There are also ion cannon spells that the magician of this world must master, as well as spells such as speed up and slow down time. Think about the Marvel world, in addition to Ancient One and Doctor Strange, who don't know which wave is now, who else can control time? Once Li Feng learns to speed up and slow down time, he just thinks about it. As for the 2 old men who killed each other for a woman in the movie, Li Feng said he was not interested. If he could help, he would help. If he couldn't help, he would just eat the popcorn and watch the big show. Just as Barstow was about to grab the balcony to get him out of the urn, a swirling orange-yellow light door appeared under him, and he watched as he passed through the closed door. At the other end of the portal was Li Feng. He only came and said anxiously, "Oh," and saw the big urn hitting himself severely. It's just that the ending is different from what Li Feng thought. The big urn went straight through his body and landed steadily on the street. Barstow breathed a sigh of relief, and struggling to crawl out of the urn and walk in front of Li Feng. He looked at Li Feng, who was naked, and stared at Sling Ring and said, "Thank you for saving me, but can you change it next time? Da urn almost smashed, and are you performing street performance art? A rookie magician." At the moment, Li Feng's attention was still on how the urn passed through his body, and he didn't pay attention to Barstow's question at all. Li Feng, with blurred eyes, looked at Barstow blankly and asked, "What's the matter with me? I'm a ghost." Bastow squinted his perception, rolled his eyes and pointed his right hand at Li Feng to help Li Feng stabilize his body. He said, "You are time and energy ridden, a small problem. Didn't your teacher teach you that you need to be careful when practicing magic?" Quote. With the help of Bastow, Li Feng, who felt the tearing pain of his whole body gradually disappeared, frowned and thought, time energy. Where did I get the time energy? No, when I deployed the portal in the room, I seemed to feel huge amounts of energy coming from the abandoned train station opposite. I wouldn't be so unlucky just to meet Ancient One as studying time on the opposite side. I was so unlucky. The first time I used the portal, I met a big guy. Seeing what Li Feng seemed to be thinking about, Bastow glanced at Li Feng's white and tender belly. He took off his windbreaker and put it on Li Feng, turning his head to see the crowd around him looking at him with strange eyes, and said, "Not a good place to be in a daze." Putting on the windbreaker, Li Feng felt a little more relaxed, turning his head and looking around, subconsciously said, "Then where am I going to be in a daze? I don't even know where this is." "I care where you are in a daze. I'm still busy looking for the doll that holds Morgana, and I have no time to take care of you." Looking at the Empire State Building in the distance, Barstow said with a plan in his mind, "I have something to do. I hope we can meet again when we are free next time. Goodbye, little rookie." After speaking, Barstow went straight to the Empire State Building. "I want to leave without teaching me spells, there is no door." Without saying anything, Li Feng quickly followed Barstow barefoot and said, "Are you Mr. Barstow Black? I know you, and I know what you are up to." Barstow has been searching for Merlin's heirs for not knowing how long, and the legend left behind is not clear to me. Since the other party is a magician, he is not surprised to recognize Barstow. Turning to look at Li Feng, he kept walking forward and warned, "Little rookie, you should go home to find your tutor. You can't participate in my business." "I don't have a mentor," Li Feng shrugged, and said firmly behind Barstow, I learned spells from a spell notebook left by my deceased grandfather, portals, mirror spaces, and spirit bodies. Quote. Barstow's reaction was expected by Li Feng, especially knowing that Li Feng's expression after practicing the spiritual body method was exactly the same as he expected. Spirit body. Barstow stopped and squinted at Li Feng. Others don't know the spirit body, but he clearly knows what a spirit is. He has been looking for the introduction of Merlin all his life, just to completely eliminate the evil magician Mogani who tried to recruit an undead army through the spirit calling ritual. The focus is on the Mogani ritual, which is called the spirit calling. It can only be said that the two worlds have different names for different objects. Roar, at least in the eyes of Barstow, the spirit in this world has another name, Roar, undead. He subconsciously felt that Li Feng did not know the dangers and difficulties of spirit magic, especially when Li Feng stated in his self-introduction that he had no mentor and was studying alone. With a serious face, Barstow felt that it was necessary to let the little rookie know what is dangerous, just like the little rookie dared to experiment with quantum energy. If it weren't for his just now, the entanglement of quantum energy would make the little rookie know. Soon after, it completely disappeared from the world. Without waiting for Barstow to speak, Li Feng understood through the other's eyes that the other party had some misunderstandings about the spirit body he was talking about. He didn't want to let Barstow have any misunderstandings about himself. He still wanted to learn magic. Li Feng hurriedly explained, "My spirit body has clarified the projection of the soul. In a sense, it can affect the soul, but the spirit body is not the soul. After the spirit body emerges, people will not die. Definitely, leave too long. It won't, after all, it will affect the soul that stays in itself." With Li Feng's endless explanations, Barstow understood what the spirit in Li Feng's mouth was. The spirit body is not the soul. Barstow silently wondered whether Li Feng's spirit spells could rescue his lover. His lover Phenonica used the body to seal Mogani, which was more or less tied to the spirit body. Looking at Li Feng, Barstow turned his head and pulled Li Feng as he walked and asked, "What is your name?" Li Feng slandered and finally caught up, and said, "Li Feng, you can also call me Austin." Before Li Feng explained clearly what a spirit body was, Barstow didn't want Li Feng to run around. He felt it necessary to teach this little rookie. Anyway, he was also planning to find David. In addition to looking for the doll that held Morgany, there are plans to teach David to become Merlin's heir. Since it is teaching apprentices, one is teaching, and the two are also teaching, there is not much difference. And it can also prevent Austin from going down the evil road. By the way, there is also the portal spell, which seems to be quite interesting. I just don't know if Austin is like it. Explain what a spirit is like and introduce it to me in detail." Barstow sneered, and said, "Well, Austin, follow me before you explain what a spirit body is, but I have something to work on at the moment, so please shut up and move away." Thin legs. Li Feng shrugged and said that he immediately shut up and opened his legs. "Are you going to save the actor David? By the way, has David been spotted by Hafiz now? It is not a good memory to be chased by a few wolves." The two went straight to the Empire State Building. Li Feng watched enviously as Barstow locked David's place between his hands, and easily awakened a statue of Iron Eagle into his mount. Standing on the Iron Eagle, Barstow waved to Li Feng and said, "Hurry up, little rookie, I'm in a hurry." He has been perception that besides Merlin's dragon ring, there is also the breath of Hafiz in the vicinity of David, and he rushed to the scene to rescue David. Not to mention that Merlin's descendants are going to be cold, even the doll of Morgany is imprisoned. The same will fall into the right and let go. As soon as I got some hope of saving Phronica, Morgany came out to rule the world over there. Is there anything worse than this? When Li Feng boarded the Iron Eagle with a grin, Barstow couldn't wait to order the Iron Eagle to fly to David. After a while, Li Feng looked at the protagonist David, who was chased by the wolves on the subway below, and Hafiz, who was wearing a top hat with a smirk in the distance. Seeing that the wolves were about to tear the fallen David into pieces, Barstow reached out his hand, turned the wolves into small dogs, and ordered the Iron Eagle to attack Hafiz. David, who had recovered from the panic, subconsciously looked at Hafiz who was chasing him, ignoring Barstow's inquiry about the whereabouts of the doll, and yelled at Hafiz, "Be careful." Barstow, who had not known how long he had lived, realized the danger behind him, and subconsciously shot a water-like spell on Hafiz. Li Feng could see clearly. The moment the water hit Hafiz, the flow of time around him slowed down, and the energy that slowed the flow of time made him feel familiar. Discovering that this place is not a suitable place for chatting in Bath, he asked David to board the Iron Eagle and prepare to wait for the three people to return to the Empire State Building to ask about the whereabouts of the doll. When the Iron Eagle took off, Li Feng's mouth twitched slightly. He glanced at Hafiz, who had broken free from the time-slowing spell, and said in his heart, Basto, Basto, and said that you love Veronica. Look at Hoffa, who was in a daze. See, a fireball can kill the opponent, such a good opportunity, won't you kill him? I think you and Hafiz are the one who loves each other. Veronica is just your excuse to avoid the worldly vision. Is there any magic in magic that turns a man into a woman? If you turn Hafiz into a woman, there are not so many troubles. If it is impossible, you can also become a woman. Anyway, I only need your knowledge of magic, and it will not prevent you from pursuing true love. Maybe I will give you a big gift when you two get married. For example, Denmark, Thailand and other countries have legal provisions on same legal marriage. What do you think? Back on the roof of the Empire State Building, David jumped off the Iron Eagle and gasped for breath, trying to convince himself that the wolf, Hafiz, etc. were all hallucinations. Li Feng didn't get off the Iron Eagle until Barstow woke him up in contemplation. He kept recalling the familiarity that Barstow had used a spell to slow down the flow of time around Hafiz at the subway station before. Standing on the side, Li Feng ignored Barstow walking down, Iron Eagle and David, explaining how dangerous the doll is, and so on. He just kept mumbling on the side, time. Where did the time energy in me come from? When David's storage box with Merlin Dragon Ring, bang, appeared in front of David, Li Feng thought of where the time energy in his body came from. In the Marvel Universe, time is related to the quantum realm. Just like when the purple sweet potato essence snaps his fingers, Ant-Man, who is trapped in the quantum realm, said that his time has not passed 5 years, and the extraordinary heroes also return to the past through the quantum realm. Collect infinite gems. Feng Li remembers an introduction in Ant-Man 2, saying that the villain's Ava is because her father's star exploded in a secret experiment of quantum channels somewhere in Argentina that made Ava the ghost agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Li Feng covered his face and muttered to himself in a low voice, I won't be so unlucky. The place to open the door is where Star did the experiment. How can I pick the time period when the quantum channel explodes? Quantum is time, and the portal originally allows me to travel through the universe. Ability is space. So under the combination of time and space, does the crossing happen? Turning his eyes to Basto, Li Feng rubbed his forehead and muttered, it doesn't seem to be that bad either. At least I can travel to other worlds. I just don't know if I can return to the Marvel Universe. I only get infinite gems from the Marvel world. Back to the original world, the chance of hearing a child calling me father is the greatest. I just want to go home. Do you want to be so bad? Don't believe that there is magician in this world. David, who only wants to live a normal life, promises that as long as David helps him find a doll and disappears from the other side's world, David readily agrees. Taking advantage of Bastow's opportunity to track the Matryoshka with the Chi charm, Li Feng walked up to David and whispered, are you really going to waste your ability and don't want to become a magician? Li Feng doesn't believe that magic is unattractive to David. After all, magic is mysterious, exciting and interesting when you hear it, and it is very attractive to young people. David smiled reluctantly at Li Feng and said, you don't understand how I feel when someone named a mental illness after me. It's useless to even transfer to another school to escape it, just like somewhere in New York now. There are still people discussing David Stetler's type of psychosis. I just want to forget the mystery house, forget the magic, forget all this, and live a normal life. Knowing what was about to happen, Li Feng shrugged, patted David on the shoulder, and said mysteriously, you will regret it, I bet 10 cents. David looked at Li Feng, who was barefoot and appeared in a vacuum, with contempt, and whispered to himself, I think you don't even have a cent. On the other side, Basto determined that the Horcrux, that is, the location of the Matryoshka, was in the city center, and said, I can track the Matryoshka doll, so can Hafiz. We need to get the Matryoshka doll before we get to the other side. After that, Bas was about to leave the building. Li Feng knows that dolls are in Chinatown. Li Feng, who has spent 2 years in the Chinatown of New York in the Marvel world, said that he is familiar with that place. Although he does not know whether there are different places in Chinatowns in different worlds, it is not important, it is important. He is standing high enough now to vaguely see the buildings in Chinatown, which is enough. Li Feng stretched out his hand to stop Barstow. While casting the portal, he stared at the distant building and said, "Maybe I can help." As soon as the voice fell, the portal opened in front of the 3 people. Standing in front of the portal, Li Feng stood straight with his upper body leaning forward slightly, his left hand on his belly, and his right hand reaching the portal and said, "Is there any transportation comparable to teleporting?" Barstow was just a little surprised. Although he hadn't seen the portal, it didn't mean he hadn't seen it. David is much more interesting, pointing to the portal with a blank expression, looking at the top of another building inside the portal. Barstow looked deeply at the sling ring and Li Feng that were not inlaid with magic gems, and went straight through the portal without saying anything. With an expression that couldn't believe his eyes, David shrugged towards the portal and muttered, "I must be crazy to believe that there is magic in this world." The 3 people had just passed through the portal, and Barstow was unhappy when he heard David's self-talk. He planned to teach David a lesson and aroused David's interest in learning magic. The successor of Merlin, who was finally found, doubted it. "Is there any magic in the world? After you learn a few simple magics, I will see if you believe it or not there is magic in this world. At that time, when you set foot in the magical world, see if you choose to be an ordinary person or magician." Barstow walked into the elevator and taught David the magician rules, what the first step is to wear the ring, what to release the fire call, etc. I heard David deeply doubt that magic is a science that is currently unknown. Barstow was also observing Li Feng's expression when he was explaining the magic. He was very curious that Li Feng clearly did not have the necessary props to cast spells. It was just a strange ring with a little mana, so he could cast spells normally. Could it be that he, like Merlin, can cast spells without magic gems? As for Li Feng, he is not interested in listening to these boring foundations here. It is not that he does not know that molecules will burn after shaking. The problem is that he is different from Barstow and the others. In this world, the use rate of ordinary people's brain is only 10 out of half, but Barstow and other magicians are all. As for Li Feng, he doesn't think that his brain usage rate has reached full capacity. If his brain is used at full power, would he still be a scumbag? As early as in the original world, so I learned to dominate. But, Li Feng glanced at the ring in David's hand, thinking, as long as I have a magic gem, plus after learning Merlin's magic ring, it doesn't matter if I don't have a full-powered brain, I have enough mana, I can also make a fireball or ion cannon by then. After a while, 3 people walked out of the building, and Li Feng saw the lively Chinatown, dancing dragons and hanging red lanterns. It is the same with Li Feng. He unconsciously recalled his wife and his children. While looking at the joyful expressions on pedestrians, he muttered with a low expression, "It's the Chinese New Year. Is it okay? I miss you." The lively voice concealed Li Feng's whispering, and David on the side pulled Li Feng and said, "Austin, what's the matter with you?" Li Feng rubbed his face, touched the tears of lovesickness in the corner of his eyes, and smiled, "It's nothing, where's Barstow?" David pointed to the health center with the words, "Acupuncture," written on the side, and said, "Barstow has gone up to find a matryoshka. Let's pay attention to Hafiz here." Li Feng probed the stairs leading to the 2nd floor, and thought to himself, Hafiz should have not come this time and pretend to be an old lady to ambush Barstow, right? Before finishing thinking about it, Li Feng covered his face and looked at a magician with braids, naked torso and a magician depicting a 5-clawed golden dragon on his waist, and fell in front of him. The man Li Feng knew, named Sun Long, was a magician who Barstow sealed in the matryoshka, and it was Hafiz who released him from the matryoshka in the movie. Needless to say, since Sun Long appeared in front of him, Hafiz, who was in love with Barstow, must have been in ambush in the acupuncture hall. Before Sun Long got up, Li Feng directly raised his foot and kicked Sun Long's head, and tore down the magic gem Sun Long was wearing on his right hand. He has long been greedy for magic gems. Now that he can grab one, he is still polite. With this magic gem, the process of learning spells will be much simpler afterwards. And Li Feng doesn't believe it anymore. Sun Long without magic gems is different from ordinary people. For him who has practiced fighting skills, as long as the opponent can't release spells, he is really not afraid of Sun Long. From the very beginning, he took the lead and hit Sun Long on the head with kicks and kicks. If this caused his opponent to come back, Li Feng's face would still be there. And so that the people around him don't care about Li Feng's nostalgia, Li Feng kicked and shouted, "What you know about gambling? Even if you lose your clothes, you're still gambling. My wife and children don't care about it. What happened to my sister? If I'm in love with you, I don't want to teach you a lesson today, and let you know what it's like to bully my sister. Not to mention, the circle of Chinese around you really don't know whether they should step up and take care of it." After all, the brother-in-law taught her brother-in-law about gambling and they didn't have much to say. On the window on the second floor of the acupuncture hall, Barstow looked at Sun Long, who was already in a coma, and he was stunned to remind David and Li Feng that if they should run, Sun Long was about to be beaten into a concussion by Li Feng, and he reminded himself. A fart, reminding Li Feng not to kill people in front of the public, is normal operation. Barstow, who turned and returned to the house, had noticed that Hafiz was hiding, and controlled Hafiz 3 times. He jumped out of the window when he got the matryoshka and said to David and Li Feng, "Let's go." Li Feng spit out his disdain at Sun Long, who was already in a coma with a blue nose and swollen face. He turned around and pulled the dazed David away and said, "Scum, if you gamble once in the future, I will let my sister and you divorce." The people around looked at Sun Long, whose chest was still rising and falling, and at Li Feng, who was leaving chastely. They said silently in their hearts, "The gambler who lost even the clothes, you have not let him and your sister divorce now, your heart it's big enough." David now only feels that his impression of the magician has been kicked into the trash can by Li Feng's punches and kicks, staring at Li Feng with unbelievable eyes, and silently slandering in his heart, "My David Stetler type mental illness must be an upgrade. If the hallucinations appear, it's a special upgrade. This is definitely not my inner graceful magician, or this guy is a barbarian, and occasionally plays a guest magician. Yes, occasionally cameo, just like when Austin had to use the portal to drive on the road before Austin came to the magician." Li Feng cast his eyes on the second floor of the acupuncture hall, turned his head to look at Barstow, and said silently in his heart, "This is the second time you have let Hafiz go. To this day and to this place, I swear, there is absolutely adultery. Please forgive my curiosity, but I really want to know what role is Veronica between you two." Although it was cool for Li Feng to beat Sun Long violently, he was also a little afraid now, not because he was afraid of Sun Long's revenge, but because he was afraid of disrupting Barstow's plan and causing discomfort to the other party, thus losing the opportunity to learn magic. After all, in the movie, it was Barstow that gave Sun Long the fatal blow, but before he killed Sun Long, David also successfully used the fire call technique. Now, Sun Long was purely reduced to a soy sauce maker and was directly knocked out by Li Feng's fist. I don't know if David is still interested in magic. If he still wants to be an ordinary person, if he is not interested, Li Feng feels that Barstow will strip his skin into leather shoes and step on him forever. For the precious skin made by his original factory, Li Feng felt that it was time to rescue him. For example, he would teach David how to use the spell now. Li Feng picked up a small piece of paper from the ground and handed it to David and said, "David, do you want to try if you can summon flames? If you can summon flames out of thin air, the attraction to beautiful girls." He still doesn't believe it. David's age is just to make the girl he likes pay attention to his age, just like a male peacock will open a screen to attract the female peacock's eyes and show his charm at a certain time. In addition, this is the United States. As long as they are not married, no one will talk about the country where the other party is making waves. Will David give up using the magician identity to attract girls? Anyway, Li Feng said he didn't believe it. There is no need to finish Li Feng's words. David has already thought that he would meet the girl he has always liked before, Betsy Barney. It has been 10 years. Wouldn't it be a kind of fate to meet again, if he is a magician? Will it attract Betsy's attention better? It seems feasible, and magician seems pretty cool. Definitely, before that, you must make sure that you really have no hallucinations. David glanced at Li Feng, then at Barstow, and decided to test whether he could light the little piece of paper in his hand to make the final choice. Li Feng patted David on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Pay attention to the first step. abandon distracting thoughts, strengthen your conviction, and believe you can do it. After speaking, Li Feng walked to Barstow and watched David's personal performance. He was slightly relieved and thought, as long as this kid successfully casts the spell, will he be far from stepping into the magical world? Barstow turned his eyes to Li Feng. He didn't think that David would fail the spell. After all, the opponent was the descendant of Merlin he had been looking for, but he was upset that Li Feng used women to entice David to practice magic. When is the time now? Hafiz has ran out of the doll to engage in wind and rain, preparing to release Morgany to destroy the world, so there is no time for David to save the girl. But in order for David to be interested in magic, Barstow said that he could bear it for the time being, and only waited for David to learn magic to destroy Morgany, and David loved it. Perhaps it was David who was indeed genius. After only a few attempts, he set the paper in his hand on fire, and he was so frightened that David immediately let go of the paper in his hand, dancing with excitement, pointing to the burning paper and saying to Barstow, "I succeeded, I succeeded." At this time, Barstow didn't say anything about the mating dolls and David's cleanup. He looked at David and said, "Yes, you succeeded. If you want to learn more about magic, we need to find a place with few people." Quote. As for how to make Hafiz unable to find the Matryoshka, Bastuth needed to set the magic circle to converge the magical atmosphere. Otherwise, as soon as Barstow hides the doll in the movie, Hafiz can't find it. It's strange, since Hafiz can find the doll before Barstow, he can definitely find the doll again. Moreover, Hafiz held the doll for a period of time, suggesting that someone had long been laying down a tracking spell on the doll. After hearing Barstow's request to learn magic, David blurted out, "I know a place." Soon after, the three of them took a taxi to a deserted place nearby. David opened the iron fence and said, "This was originally the subway back to the station, but now it's scrapped. They asked me to experiment here because of some experiments. It's dangerous." Going into the underground back to the station, Barstow walked to the table and put the doll down and invisible, turned around and took out a Matchbox file-size magic book from his pocket and handed it to David. He smiled and said, "There was no chance before. Here you are, your magic book." David raised his brows and gestured to the magic book of impressions and said, "I remember that the magic book is bigger than this." Li Feng was a little bit envious. He actually wanted this magic book, and he didn't know if Barstow had any extra magic book. If there is, Li Feng doesn't mind using the 3 kinds of spells he knows in exchange, even a second-hand magic book. After all, this thing not only records everything that happened in the magical world, but can also update it in real time on its own. Even photos of David breaking into Barstow's mysterious house 10 years ago and then leaving with a look of horror are recorded. This is magical. With it, when Li Feng returns to the original world, he doesn't say that he can see the movement of Ancient One from time to time. It is enough to check whether there is a holy place magician near his home. After handing over the magic book to David, Barstow rubbed his hands to prepare to portray Merlin's ring, and officially accepted David as an apprentice of magic. As for Li Feng, in addition to envy, he quietly held the magic gems that Sun Long grabbed in his hands, and watched Barstow portray Merlin's magic ring without turning his eyes, hoping to jot down how to portray Merlin's magic ring on the ground. It's a pity that when Barstow officially accepted David as his apprentice and walked out of Merlin's magic circle, Li Feng didn't remember the Merlin's magic circle, let alone understand what it was. Taking advantage of David's opportunity to look for protective items, Li Feng walked to Barstow, who portrayed the law of restraint, and said, "Mr. Black, can I exchange my unique spells for your teaching?" In order to allow Barstow to teach himself, Li Feng added, "My unique spells include the spirit body out of the body." This tone is so big, I am someone who has lived for 1,000 years anyway, so you are so confident. In addition to the portals I have seen before, what unique spells do you have? Barstow glanced at Li Feng, smiled and said, "Are you sure this is your unique spell?" "Definitely," Li Feng said affirmatively, and he added in his heart, "Unless this world Ancient One has been here and left behind, my spells are absolutely unique." Barstow, who had long been instructing Li Feng with his arms around, raised his brow and said, "While David hasn't put on his armor, you can talk about your unique spell first." While speaking, Barstow deliberately emphasized the word, unique. In this regard, Li Feng said that he heard the meaning of distrust in the words, but did not refute it. Sometimes it is the right choice to slap the face with facts. You have already seen the portal spell, so I won't say much. Li Feng looked around, sat down on a chair, and said while letting the spirit body emerge, "This is the spirit body leaving the orifice." Ordinary people can't see the spirit body, but as Merlin's apprentice, as well as the 777 level Barstow, he clearly watched Li Feng's spirit body floating from the body, but the body is still sucking in the normal roar. I just feel that my body has become a vegetable. And Barstow also understands that the spirit body mentioned by Li Feng is indeed related to the soul, but that is all. The soul is the soul, and the spirit body is the spirit body. After a while, Li Feng, whose spirit body returned to his flesh body, got up and scratched his head, and said with a hint of embarrassment, "There are still mirror space spells, but I have never practiced them. I will explain the casting steps to you in detail. How do you try?" When David returned with his armor like a tortoise shell, Li Feng had reached an agreement with Barstow. Barstow was willing to teach Li Feng magic and gave him a magic book personally. Definitely, even if he accepts the disciple, he has no time. If he could, he didn't even want David to teach, because he had a crazy plan in his mind now. The mirror space can completely isolate the real world. If Morgany is imprisoned in the mirror space, how can Morgany perform the spiritual calling ceremony? There are no casting materials. Not to mention that it is impossible for Morgany to successfully summon the spirit in the scene space. Even if Morgany successfully summons the spirit in the mirror space, how can a person who does not understand the mirror space escape from the space? At that time, who will Morgany rule in the mirror space? Do you rule the necromantic army that you have summoned? Li Feng knows how bad the world's skills in using different spaces are. He remembers that Hafiz was imprisoned in the mirror world by Barstow in the film. In the end, he needed help from his men to escape, so Morgany once entered mirror space. She should still be honestly dead in a different space. Speaking of this, Li Feng had to make complaints about Barstow letting off Hafiz once again. He clearly imprisoned him in the Hungarian mirror sinking, but he patted the butt with David and left. What is this? Li Feng thinks this is the depth of love. As for how to get Morgany's soul to leave Veronica's body, Barstow felt that the astral body out of the body inspired him. Astral body out of the body is not just a simple active skill. In addition to actively casting spells to let the body out of the body, it also able to shoot the opponent's spirit body out of the body. Didn't you see that Ancient One played with Doctor Strange's spirit body and almost caused a heart attack in the body? As long as Barstow researched it a little bit, maybe he could be able to knock Morgany's soul out of Veronica's body. After the deal was concluded, Barstow simply drew another Merlin magic ring on the ground. Fortunately, the laboratory David was looking for was large enough, otherwise he would really have no less than 2 Merlin magic rings. Barstow threw a pair of leather shoes to Li Feng and asked Li Feng to stay in Merlin's magic circle and listen to how he taught David. Before killing Morgany, Barstow's teaching object was still mainly David. As for Li Feng, he should only be he is an auditor who is not qualified to ask questions. But Li Feng has no objection. What can he do if he has an opinion? Hit Barstow. Li Feng had to beat him. In the film, David can release the ion cannon after just a few attempts, but in reality it is not that simple. It was not until a week later that David successfully cast the spell once. When David successfully used the vacuum ball to defend against the fireball, David said that he was already a magician and wanted to take Barstow to eat some delicious food. Soak the girl by the way, really, just by the way. But Li Feng said that he still stayed in the laboratory and continued to compete with the fire call technique. I don't know if Li Feng is really not qualified to practice magic or because his brain is not at full power. Anyway, standing in the magic ring of Merlin and wearing magic gems to study fire call, he only succeeded within 1 meter. Call out a little flame, the kind of flame that the match is about to extinguish. What kind of strenuous flame can hurt people? Save it. Li Feng whispered secretly when he heard the door of the station being closed. He knew that David was going out this time to meet Betsy, who had been secretly in love for many years, and to show off his excellence. As a result, when Betsy was sent to the subway, he happened to encounter a robber who snatched Betsy's beloved bracelet. David, who felt like he was a magician, stepped forward and subdued the robber and regained the bracelet without chasing far enough. When returning the bracelet to Betsy, David spoke nonsense to Betsy and invited Betsy to return to the station tomorrow for a midterm review guide for little Maymay. I don't know what Betsy thinks, maybe because of thanks to David for helping her regain the bracelet, Betsy directly agreed to David's invitation. This makes Li Feng a little uncomfortable. Why can David successfully pick up his sister without revealing his magician identity? He has been a single dog in the Marvel world for so many years, and he doesn't know whether the girl's hands are smooth or rough. What makes Li Feng even more upset is that Betsy will come to the laboratory tomorrow. You became an apprentice, but what about me? Not to mention the release of the vacuum ball. I didn't even see the shadow of the ion cannon. I was still working hard on the fire calling technique. I had to stop practicing magic for a day. Not to mention, I went back to the station to spread dog food. I thought about being a single person. Does Wong feel it? Tukao, Li Feng is still practicing spells in the Merlin magic circle. After a while, Li Feng patted his forehead and muttered annoyedly, I'm so stupid, I forgot all my advantages. After speaking, Li Feng sat cross-legged in the middle of the magic ring of Merlin, because he suddenly thought of a way to quickly increase mana. It's just that Li Feng didn't expect that Barstow, in addition to going out to comfort his empty stomach for the next 10 years, also took advantage of David's time with his sister to retrieve some of his magic equipment from the mysterious room, including the gift he was going to give to Li Feng. Barstow and David returned to the station. David, who was carrying a few burgers to Li Feng for dinner, looked at Li Feng in Merlin's magic circle speechlessly. He turned his head and said to the surprised Barstow, "Os." Ding's desire for strength is almost demonstrative. Is this guy actually sleeping cross-legged in Merlin's magic ring? Barstow rolled his eyes lazily to retort David's words. He was not like David, a new apprentice who couldn't see Li Feng's spirit body. Barstow not only clearly saw Li Feng floating above Merlin's magic ring, but he could also feel the rapid increase in Li Feng's mana. However, it was also Li Feng who used the spirit body to quickly improve his own mana so that Barstow could see something abnormal in Li Feng's soul. He felt it necessary to have a good talk with Li Feng first, and was considering whether to give his gift to Li Feng. Barstow asked David to walk outside of Li Feng's Merlin magic circle after studying, and whispered to Li Feng's spirit body, "Austin, I need to talk to you." David was a little confused. "Brother, haven't you seen everyone sleeping? You can wake up a sleeping person by speaking so softly." Before David reminded Barstow, "You can't wake people up like this." Li Feng's spirit body had returned to his body, and he stood up and said to Barstow, "Okay, it just so happens that I want to talk to you too." "David, how about a good sleep? It's still said that your sleep quality is too poor. It is estimated that mosquitoes flying around can wake you up." As Barstow walked to the corner, he whispered to Li Feng behind him, "Although magicians are masters of energy manipulation, this allows us to release various types of spells, but generally speaking, magicians have different energy attributes. The spells I am good at." Li Feng could understand this. Just as Ancient One absorbed dark energy and used dark energy as the source of mana, but she was still able to use the mirror space and other spells that had nothing to do with darkness. Or like David, who played the Tesla coil in front of Betsy, although he is proficient in the use of fire calling art, the spell he is good at is still the ion cannon. This is related to his original ability, or to say David's mana attribute is electricity. Seeing that Li Feng understood what he meant, Barstow said solemnly, "Just now when I saw your spirit body gather energy, I found that your mana attributes were a bit biased." After hesitation, Barstow did not utter the word dark, but continued, "The time and space energy your spirits gather is okay. Although ordinary magicians have very few mana attributes at the same time, it's not uncommon, but I discovered that your main attribute is that your soul is related to fire." Li Feng was stunned when he heard that his mana attributes had time and space, and then thought that the so-called time energy was most likely the quantum energy of the Marvel world, and he was contaminated a lot while traveling. "I feel a tearing pain all over my body. Can there be less quantum energy? As for the spatial energy," Li Feng silently thought, "either it is related to the portal, or it is related to the passage of his soul to the Marvel world. After all, the soul has no spatial attributes. How did I travel to the Marvel world in this world?" The next fire attribute is relatively ordinary, not worthy of Li Feng's attention, only the soul. Li Feng wants to complain. "Maybe this is also related to my crossing, otherwise it is not realistic to have the space attribute and want to cross. The soul is here when passing through, it is still not ground into slag by space energy. Considering that Basto deliberately called Li Feng aside to mention some soul, Li Feng understood that his mana attributes about the soul were not just a little bit, but occupy the dominant position in the originally mana attributes. What profession does the magician who is good at soul magic have? The first reaction in Li Feng's mind was magician, necromancer, and necromancer with the skeleton baby. What Li Feng didn't know was that the flame attributes that Basto told him were actually biased towards the dark side. For example, normal flames only rely on combustion and temperature to harm opponents, but as soon as Li Feng develops his own flame attributes, he will find that his flames are not burning the opponent's soul directly as the flame that torment the opponent's soul. It's like hellfire, a kind of pain that can't burn Deadman's soul, but let that person feel the pain of his soul being racked on a grill over and over to barbecue. It can be said to be the best way to torture people when traveling at home. Seeing Li Feng's thoughtful look, Basto realized that he didn't need to say more. As for the flame's dark nature, he didn't want to say anything. After all, he didn't want to teach Li Feng about the soul or the flames of hell. He just reminded him in a low voice, and the magicians who are related to the undead will not end well. They played with their souls and blasphemed the corpse before they were alive, and they will definitely go to hell to be punished after death. As for whether there is hell in this world, Li Feng asked lazily. Do you still have to ask if there is hell in the world where magician has emerged? Besides, in the world of Magician's Apprentice, Mogan Ni, who has been playing soy sauce, is capable of summoning spirit spells. In a world without hell, where can she summon the undead to rule the world? As for the Marvel world, the goddess of death, one of the 5 creation gods, understands. Thinking about returning to the Marvel world, Li Feng, who was studying the summoning undead spell, secretly thought, but the goddess of death's jurisdiction is the entire universe, shouldn't he pay attention to the weak me? Just don't know me. Can I go back to the Marvel world? It will be miserable if I can't go back. I won't say much about infinite gems, but it's too sad that my hope of going home becomes slim. As for now, Li Feng, who thinks he is still a rookie, dare not show interest in summoning skeleton babies in front of the righteous Barstow. Without seeing Barstow, he specifically called him because his mana is related to his soul. Go to the side to preach. As long as Li Feng shows interest in spirit calling spells, who knows whether Basto will kill Li Feng directly, in case there are people in this world who want to call the undead to rule the world. After confirming that Li Feng really has no love for spirit calling spells, Basto patiently explained the danger of dark energy with Li Feng and took out a matchbox file-size magic book from his pocket, and looked at the magic book while turning it over. The magic gem in Li Feng's right hand said, "This is the magic book I got from Sun Long when he was imprisoning him. Now it is given to you as a teaching material." Without waiting for Li Feng to take the magic book, Basto said according to the magic book, however, Sun Long recorded a lot of black magic information in this book, so. Speaking of this, Basto lightly tapped the magic book, smiled and said, "Now I clear the black magic information and replace it with the fire spell. I hope you will like it." "I like it, I really like it. Definitely, according to the molecular vibration and magician's hand, you can successfully use fireball. If you record the principle of nuclear fusion that the sun glows and heats in this magic book, I would like it better. What is the fireball technique of nuclear fusion that can't be burned? Just think about it." It's a pity that after Li Feng opened the book and read it for a long time, he realized that he was thinking too much. Except for the fireball technique, which is based on the violent vibration of molecules, the rest is either the rain of flames or the wall of fire. The only spell that makes people's eyes even brighter is the introduction of the principle of flight that allows air to be ejected from a certain nozzle, even when the air burns and then expands. In this regard, Li Feng was a little disappointed. The principle of using the flame to complete the jet flight is recorded, but I dare not fly, my neck can't stand such huge amounts of propulsion. And the high-tech principles of the type engine have been recorded. How can you not record the fireball technique of nuclear fusion? Are you discriminating against nuclear fusion, or are you worried that I don't understand? Although I really don't understand, can't I learn it? They are very easy to learn. By the way, and your magic gems? Basto pointed to Li Feng's right hand and said, "Give me the magic gems. I will forge the ring for you. If you save the spell, you must hold the magic gems." Li Feng handed the magic gem to Barstow without even thinking about it, and bowed and said, "Thank you very much." At the same time, he also expressed his deep gratitude to Sun Long in his heart. The magic gems were robbed by Li Feng from Sun Long, and the magic book was obtained by Barstow from the spoils of Sun Long. Now these are all owned by Li Feng. If he does not express his gratitude, he would be too sorry for this good fellow who specializes in sending equipment. Bar. The next day, Li Feng, who had been staying in the magic ring of Merlin and gathering mana with his spirit body, heard the doorbell ringing at the return station. He understood that today's practice had to stop, but when Li Feng's spirit body just returned to the body, the pain in the body struck again. When David heard the doorbell, it suddenly occurred to him that he had not told Barstow and Li Feng about his invitation to Betsy last night. For being alone with the goddess who had a crush for a long time, David told Barstow and Li Feng euphemistically, "You guys who don't want to eat dog food, please leave gracefully." Barstow still wants to talk to David about how Hafez will be killed at any time, and how tense the current situation is, but Li Feng has paled and pulled Barstow to leave. Compared with Barstow and David, Betsy was the first to notice the big cold sweat on Li Feng's face, and pointed at Li Feng, indicating whether Barstow and David should take Li Feng to the hospital first. Barstow looked at Li Feng, who was pale, and realized that the time energy inside Li Feng was rioting again. Considering that Betsy was just an ordinary person, and in order to hide the magical world, Barstow glared at David and supported Li Feng. Hurriedly walked back to the station. David wanted to care about Li Feng, but he thought that Li Feng would not be in danger if he was taken care of by Barstow. On the other hand, he could show off his own sense of excellence with Betsy alone. After thinking about 0.1 second, David thought, "Choose to be alone with Betsy." As soon as Li Feng and Barstow walked back to the station, Barstow helped Li Feng calm the time and energy with a look of confusion, and said, "This is impossible. I have helped you calm the time and energy before." Perhaps it was thinking of something. After Li Feng's face returned to normal, Barstow said in a bad tone, "You studied time privately after David and I left last night. Maybe I misunderstood you, this pain of being torn apart by energy. Maybe you should bear it for a while, so that you can understand what the magical world is and there are dangers everywhere." Li Feng was relieved, squeezing his knees with his hands, panting and smiling bitterly at the same time, wanting to tell the other person that he is not a person in this world. It's better to explain to Barstow, maybe with the other party's knowledge reserves, I can return to the Marvel world. After thinking about it, Li Feng rubbed his aching forehead and whispered, "This is not time energy, but quantum energy." Barstow was stunned, and instantly thought that the scientific name of quantum might be time in magic, but quantum is not equal to time, but is related to time, and it is just as before that makes him feel clear and calm. Time energy will riot again, because the root cause has not been found. No matter how he casts the spells symptomatically, it is ineffective. Otherwise, his dignified 777 magician can't soothe a little time energy. Where is his face? Stretching out his hand, Barstow motioned Li Feng to continue. He was very curious. After a few days of getting along, he was a scumbag, and the relationship between Li Summit and the quantum realm of a mysterious person. Don't tell me you still a scientist in the quantum field, I am afraid that my stomach will laugh out of my abdominal muscles. Li Feng is definitely not a scientist, and it's almost the same if he is living at home. When Li Feng scratched his head while telling that he was not a person in this world, Barstow first didn't believe it, and then thought that Li Feng's 3 unique spells do not belong to this world, and Barstow stretched out his right hand to release the portal to the clearing, and said, "You can come to my world because of it." It has to be said that the 777 magician is cowhide, and Barstow can successfully release the portal in just a few days. Li Feng glanced at the suspected parking lot on the other side of the portal, nodded and said, "Yes, this kind of teleportation technology can indeed boast the world teleportation in theory, but it has clear requirements for the caster." Barstow said without thinking, "You need to understand where you want to go, and remember where you want to go in detail. The more detailed the spell, the faster you can cast it. On the contrary, you are not sure where you want to go or where it does not exist. It will fail to cast." It is precisely this basic requirement for casting that magicians who have never walked out of the Marvel world can only use portals in the local world, instead of walking freely in other world. Otherwise, the people of Ancient One should not call the secret magician, just call the travels magician. NS. And the entire Kage will not only be supported by Ancient One. Think about how many otherworld methods can make magician powerful. If Holy Place magician can freely enter and exit those worlds, what about Dormammu in the Marvel world? The magician who came to the summit of Otherworld and went home to relax, just press Dormammu on the ground and rub it. As for the purple sweet potato essence, do you want to become a sheep and graze on the ground, or become a fat pig and be raised in a pig pen? Maybe become a panda and be watched by people. At any rate, it is also a national treasure that has no worries about food and clothing. Compared to sheep and pigs that are accidentally slaughtered and served on the table, the quality of national treasures is much higher. Barstow still has some doubts. With the portal to Otherworld, he believes he still can't go to Otherworld. Squinting, Barstow stared at Li Feng and thought, so the quantum energy that Li Feng specifically mentioned before is very likely to be a necessary part of the journey. Thinking of this, Barstow walked to Li Feng's body and pressed his right hand on Li Feng's forehead to perceive the quantum energy. After a while, Barstow realized something from it and looked at Li Feng with surprise. It looks like Barstow found something. With a little anxiety, Li Feng asked carefully, "Can I still return to the original world?" For Li Feng's question, Barstow answered yes. He was concerned about another thing. The quantum realm is actually related to time travel, and I can feel the time inside Austin. No, it is the quantum energy that has been connected to the Earth's long river of time, and the characteristics of the portal have caused the other party to appear on the Earth in all time and space. It's just that it clearly shows that I can't travel to Otherworld. First of all, how to make quantum energy exist in my body without killing me is a problem. It can only be said that everyone has their own destiny. With a little envy, Barstow informed Li Feng of what he had discovered, and Li Feng felt that he had a headache. It is understandable to use quantum to travel through time. After all, it is mentioned in the Women's Federation 4, but the relationship between the quantum energy in my body and the Earth is a bit confused, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. This is a good thing, Barstow explained quietly, letting Li Feng understand how much benefit he had gained after the quantum channel exploded. To explain with Li Feng's idea, there are countless tributaries in the big river of time, and one of the tributaries diverges from the source Earth to countless Earths, and the quantum energy in Li Feng's body makes him and this source time from the Earth. Connect the line to the relationship. For a long time, Li Feng licked his excited lips and said, "So as long as there is an Earth in the world, I can rely on quantum energy to travel through the past." Barstow rolled his eyes, pointed to the portal and said, "This thing requires energy to cast spells. I can only say that you can rely on quantum energy to reach various worlds, but whether you can land in that world depends on whether that world corresponds to it. The energy allows you to open the exit of the portal." After thinking about it for a while, Li Feng understood what Barstow meant, and said, "That is to say, although I can't reach a purely technologically developed Earth, I can land on those Earths with magical power." Barstow nodded with envy. If you don't envy, will there be fewer parallel Earths with mysterious side power? Obviously a lot, especially those worlds with mythological creatures, not to mention the powerful spells of killing gods and killing demons. Just letting their own powerful medicinal material formula is worth his saliva. Unfortunately, he can't go, at least not for now. Feeling full of fighting spirit again, and igniting the desire to continue to grow stronger, Barstow thought, maybe I can't go to other worlds now, but as long as I continue to practice, I will be able to travel to other worlds sooner or later. But before that, I want to confirm one thing. Barstow glanced at Li Feng, who had smirked so much that he slobbered, and silently took out the handkerchief from his pocket, and said, "First wipe your saliva, I'm telling you how to return to your original world, and..." With blind people on his face, he can see the contempt, and Barstow continued, "You are a typical example of embarrassing you and lost your face to Otherworld. The prerequisite for wanting to lose face is that you have to have a face." Li Feng said that his face has been in his trouser pocket a long time ago, and it is impossible to lose it. Li Feng took a deep breath and slowly exhaled it. This was also the advantage of long-term meditation. After only a few seconds, Li Feng concentrated his mental energy and signaled that Barstow could teach him how to open the door and go home. Barstow touched his chin and said, "Now you try time first. See if you can return to your original world with the quantum energy calmed down." Li Feng scratched his eyebrows, spread his hand and said, "No need to try, I know I can't go back, because I tried it before." There was only a swirling orange energy, and the complete portal could not appear. It seems that part of my understanding is correct. Barstow is not sad or disappointed by Li Feng secretly trying to open the way home. If he is inexplicably teleported to other worlds, he will also try to get home. Barstow stretched out his hand to make the calm quantum energy in Li Feng's body fluctuate again, and said, "Since you have successfully crossed the river of time, you must rely on the help of the river of time if you want to go home, so you need to connect the quantum energy to the portal. Combine, you have the hope of going home." As soon as the voice fell, Li Feng felt the pain of his body being ripped apart by energy, but this time he didn't say anything, enduring the pain of his body being crushed, and released the portal to the distant open space. Not to mention, the portal that appeared this time is really blue and white, and there were previous speculations about the tributaries of time. The careful Li Feng clearly discovered that a slender green light representing time in the blue and white light curtain is constantly distorted. When the portal completely appeared, Li Feng only felt a suction from the portal, but before Li Feng could stabilize his footing, the portal suddenly wanted Li Feng to pounce. "What's the situation? I don't want to walk into the blue and white light curtain, so your naughty portal swallowed me directly. Everyone should be reasonable, don't you know? Although I want to go, how can I also thank Barstow and say goodbye? I won't give me this time, stingy right." Although Barstow was a little surprised by the naughty of the portal, he didn't say much, just silently clenched his fist. "When Morgany is resolved, I will resume the life of cultivating, one day. Austin, we will meet again." In the Marvel world, Holy Place Magician has always been known for secretly guarding the Earth from being invaded by alien magic. For this reason, they have also built a set of protection and monitoring networks on the Earth. Unfortunately, Li Feng, who had just squeezed out of the rubber pipe, returned from another world. Therefore, he took possession of both the magical creatures and the alien invasion. It would be too magical to be discovered by the Holy Place Magician in this way. Dereliction of duty. Coupled with Li Feng's use of unfamiliar quantum energy to travel through, this is undoubtedly as bright as a lighthouse in the dark for Ancient One, which is extremely sensitive to time forces. It is difficult for her to pretend to be blind and not see. So Daniel Magician, who guards the holy place in New York, just wanted to sound the alarm and summon the manpower. When he was in Ancient One in the Himalayas, he instantly appeared next to him and said, "Daniel, don't worry." Not in a hurry. Daniel turned his head and looked at the magician behind him. He felt that Ancient One stopped him because the invaders that appeared this time were powerful or large. There are fewer magicians gathered now. Ancient One is afraid that these disciples will not appear. The necessary loss. After all, it is quite difficult to cultivate a magician. Not everyone has the same magical aptitude as Dr. Strange, and they will become stronger after being killed in front of Dormammu many times. Ordinary magicians are afraid that after being tortured and killed several times by Dormammu, their spiritual body will be the first to be unable to withstand the blow and they will be completely dead. When Daniel was about to ask if he wanted to gather more people, Ancient One smiled and said, this time it was not an invasion, but was caused by a traveling guy coming home. Daniel was a little confused and mumbled, "Traveling out." Then Daniel thought of something. He glanced at the magic device that was still sounding the alarm, then turned his head to Ancient One in a daze and said, "Supreme Magician, do you mean someone went to Otherworld to travel? And now he's back?" Ancient One nodded and said, "The portal used by this little guy is still learned from us, so I really have to talk about it with us." Daniel is a little confused. Although he knows that portals can travel across the world, he has never seen anyone who can travel to other worlds apart from knowing that they are attached to the mirrored space of reality. By the way, whose disciple is this, such a cowhide? He is still protecting the local world from being invaded by outsiders. On the other side, some people play the portal and go to other worlds. To be honest, Daniel actually wants to get to know this guy who can boast about world travel. It is best to exchange portal spells. He may also travel to other world travels when he is free to broaden his horizons. This is much more interesting than, I measured the earth with my feet. I have measured other worlds. Can you? But Daniel cast his eyes on Ancient One. He knew that since this guy's return from Otherworld had shocked the Supreme Magician, it meant that Ancient One was going to take care of it himself, and basically it had nothing to do with him. Shu realized that Daniel was disappointed, and Ancient One smiled and said, "Go and meet this little guy with me. By the way, you know it too." "I know." Daniel's eyes were a little confused. He searched his memory and couldn't think of what he knew. Magician could travel on the plane, until he had no comment and recalled the address he had seen before. Chinatown. Li Feng. How capable is Li Feng? Would Daniel not know? Basically, as long as there is a mana alert in Chinatown on the monitoring network, he will check it out in person. In addition to caring far about the descendants of Li Feng, an old friend, he also has the idea of seeing how Li Feng is practicing his spells now. It can be said that every time Li Feng's growth in the past 2 years is Daniel's eyes. Is it possible that Li Feng can hide his strength under his eyes? Seeing Ancient One nodded to confirm that the traveling guy is Li Feng, Daniel twitched his mouth and thought, this is a bit awkward, or is it that I am so dizzy? Ancient One raised his brow and reached out to open a portal. To be honest, she would not have noticed Li Feng if she hadn't noticed the time fluctuations when Li Feng transmitted. It can only be said that Li Feng's luck is overwhelming, and he didn't let Ancient One use the eyes of Agamotto to check his past. Otherwise, just because Li Feng's spiritual body appeared 2 years ago, he was a greasy uncle, and Ancient One would pinch his neck. Ask the question off: where do you come from and where do you want to go? Li Feng, who had just returned to his room, couldn't bother to check what had changed in the messy room. He was naked and vomiting on one knee. He had already noticed the mana fluctuations caused by the portal behind him. Enduring the desire to continue vomiting, Li Feng's eyes twitched and looked at Ancient One with Zheng Liang's bald head on stage. From now on, Daniel would come to spy on him from time to time behind Ancient One. With a fake smile, Li Feng carefully moved to the closet with his hands in his crotch. While putting on his clothes, he said in a low voice, "Big brother, can you call Roar first next time you come here? At least make a phone call or send an email. Yeah, you see my house is messed up, it's really not suitable to entertain you." Ancient One carried his hands on his back and looked up and down Li Feng with interest. This gave Li Feng the illusion that he was a doll placed on the cargo rack, allowing the buyer Ancient One to check the quality of the items wantonly. As for whether Li Feng is naked or not, Ancient One said that she has watched too much in her life, and she doesn't care about looking at naked men. Moreover, Li Feng's small belly has already let Ancient One know that Li Feng is not her food, since it is in someone else's bowl. What about Ancient One's dishes? Anyway, Ancient One doesn't feel at a disadvantage. When Li Feng put on his clothes in a hurry, he almost understood what Ancient One should see, only for Li Feng to show up and confirm her conjecture. When Daniel got dressed in Li Feng, he asked anxiously, "Li Feng, how did you complete your journey to other worlds?" "Well, you can answer the reason why you didn't peep at me from a distance this time." Li Feng scratched his brows, picked up Barstow from the ground and sent him the magic book and said, "Will you go straight to the subject without introducing yourself?" Ancient One looked at Li Feng's small single room, and said with a smile, "Aren't you calling me the boss? Is it necessary to introduce yourself?" And Ancient One pointed to the surveillance screen that had been darkened because no one was at home for a long time, and said, "I think you are no stranger to Daniel Magician, who is watching you." Daniel hadn't paid attention to the monitor screen before. After all, no one would notice that there was a darkened TV screen in the dilapidated room. When Ancient One specifically pointed out that it was a monitor, he realized what he thought was secret. Check. I'm afraid Li Feng has noticed it a long time ago, which makes his face a little bit uncontrollable. It was said that he observed secretly, and the other party knew that there was a person of his own. What kind of secretiveness is this? I know your existence from my grandpa's notes. I don't know why. Li Feng always feels that he needs to explain, otherwise the boss of Ancient One has nothing to do with Time Gem. Looking at his past, all his details have not leaked out. Regarding Li Feng's explanation, Ancient One nodded in recognition. It is not just that Grandpa Li Feng will record her identity in his personal notes. As long as he is a disciple who has been in the holy place, he will write a few words about her in the recorded notes. The figure and the iconic big bald head also made those who hadn't seen her magician recognize her at a glance. After all, a woman who can magically shave her head is not much. Because traveling back to the Marvel world requires a quantum energy riot, Li Feng, who has not been able to automatically quell this riot energy, needs deep roar inhalation to relieve physical pain, but fortunately, Ancient One sees Li Feng's sharp pain and casts a spell on the quantum energy. Calm down. Feeling a lot, Li Feng immediately said respectfully to Ancient One, "Thank you." Ancient One shook his head and signaled no thanks, but Daniel on the side couldn't help but wonder in his heart, and asked again, "We came here this time to ask how you completed the crossing plane." Li Feng scratched his head and glanced at the messy room caused by his trip to the world of Barstow, and the dusty room that didn't know how long he had been in Otherworld. While thinking about whether he should change his living environment, he told Ancient One and Daniel about the principle of crossing that Barstow had told him. Unlike Daniel, who doesn't understand the quantum realm, Ancient One understands it. To put it bluntly, Li Feng can only do this kind of thing by himself. Be careful and you will be dragged into the river for a long time and drown. The quantum energy when Li Feng travels is different from the time divergence caused by using time gem to travel through time and space. The quantum energy in Li Feng's body is more like a boat to protect him, allowing him to drift on the long river of time, while the portal is the port where he goes ashore. Definitely, just like I said before that Li Feng can only go to the world where there is magic, the ship and the port must match to let Li Feng disembark, otherwise you can try to dock a raft in a port where an aircraft carrier is docked, or if an aircraft carrier is docked try using a special port for rowing boats. Either the raft is destroyed and cannot be landed or the aircraft carrier is stranded. It's just that not everyone can ride on this boat. At present, except for Li Feng's accident that caused a similar boat to recognize the owner, no one can get on this magical ship of time. Ancient One also understands that as long as Li Feng remembers the seats of these ports, he can travel to and from multiple worlds freely. But obviously, Li Feng's power is not enough for him to remember these ports, so Ancient One knew that Li Feng could only ship from the Marvel world for the time being, and drifted aimlessly to the next port, and then relied on a boat that kept the Marvel world coordinates in mind. Send Li Feng back to the Marvel world. After Ancient One's answer, Daniel said that he didn't understand these principles, but he also understood that interplanetary travel was basically because he had no chance. He waved his hand in frustration and said that he needed to return to the holy place in New York to be quiet. Ancient One sent an invitation to Li Feng, hoping that Li Feng could come to Kage when he had time, and hoped to borrow Sha Sunlong's magic book from Li Feng. In exchange, Ancient One said she could teach Li Feng magic for a period of time. What can Li Feng say about this? I definitely want Ancient One to wait. I saw that Li Feng called the landlord as quickly as possible to express that he was very happy to rent in Chinatown, but he found a new place to live, saying that he would not go through the Ancient One portal with a few changes of clothes after continuing to rent. Kage. Li Feng already has plans for the future, that is, he will continue to study in the magical world, hoping to collect infinite gems before Thanos and go home, or to snatch infinite gems directly from Thanos when he is strong enough. Definitely, the latter is just a luxury. It is estimated that when Li Feng can beat Thanos, he can take the initiative to open the door to go home without infinite gems. She expressed her understanding of Li Feng's style of Ancient One, which has no attachment to Chinatown, because she saw that Li Feng was ready to go on the road of magic. A place like Chinatown was obviously not suitable for practicing magic, and it was easy to be disturbed. But leakage is also a trouble. Let alone a shield, it is enough for Li Feng. Oh, sorry, shield has not changed its name, but it is still called the National Land Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. When I came to Kage with Ancient One didn't directly start teaching Li Feng. After all, she also saw that Li Feng, who had just returned from the journey, needed a rest. Instructed Modu to arrange Li Feng's room to rest, and Ancient One walked into the hall holding a magic book that Li Feng hadn't had time to read, looking with relish. Mordu is more accepting of death. In the original book, he chose to leave because he knew that Ancient One was absorbing dark energy secretly, and killed a large number of magicians to maintain the balance of the natural world. Therefore, Li Feng didn't have the idea of approaching the other party except for his apparent politeness. Moreover, it is not that Li Feng doesn't know his future path. Since his mana is biased towards the dark side, it will inevitably conflict with Mordor. Rather than being unclear at that time, it is better to keep a distance from Mordor now. No words for a night. Li Feng, who had rested all night, came down to Ancient One's living room under the guidance of Mordu, and Ancient One had already prepared tea to entertain Li Feng. Although Ancient One said that making tea by himself is a basic operation, Li Feng still feels flattered. This is the tea made by the big shot at the top of the earth. Can ordinary people drink it? When Li Feng finished savoring the tea, Ancient One handed the magic book to Li Feng and said, "Very interesting spells and books are just caused by a lot of defects because of the difference in the world. I am afraid that you will need your own time to record. The world is different, defective." Li Feng didn't understand, because he took a few glances at the magic book and didn't find anything defective. Ancient One stretched out his hand and motioned to Li Feng to open it and see what she meant. With a hint of doubt, Li Feng flipped through the magic book. After a while, the corner of Li Feng's eyes kept beating to express his speechlessness and helplessness. Originally, the magic book could automatically record everything that happened in the magic world, but the world connected to this magic book was obviously the world of Barstow, but when it came to the world of Marvel, it was a bit unacceptable. The first is about the history of magic, and the knowledge of art disappeared inexplicably. Li Feng didn't take it seriously. It's not a big deal to disappear if it disappears. However, some medicine formulas and alchemy formulas disappear without corresponding materials in the Marvel world. It cannot be said that the formula disappears, but the corresponding material names disappear. But Li Feng still said that he couldn't stand it. What do you mean by this? A potion that can increase mental power originally requires 10 materials, but because the relevant medicinal materials are not available in the Marvel world, you left me with the names of 5 materials and 5 blank brackets. Is this for me to figure out a way to add the name of the medicinal material in the brackets or how to drop it? The only good news is that the various spells that Basto left on the magic book still exist. In addition to proving that these spells are still effective in the Marvel world, it also proves from the side that Li Feng can learn these spells as long as he works hard, including Ancient One. It is greedy for time to speed up and slow down spells. But, since I'm at Kamatage, I definitely learn to forge a magician robe first, otherwise I have to land naked on other planes every time I cross it. After passing through many times, either I can't pick it up, or I'm shameless. Li Feng kept spitting out in his heart and not letting him wear clothes. At the same time, he folded 2 A4 paper file-size magic books into a matchbox file size and put them in his pocket. He sat cross-legged across from Ancient One, looking like he was quietly waiting to be taught. Ancient One deserves to be an experienced worker who has been engaged in education for many years. Just as Li Feng raised some doubts, Ancient One has already answered in a way that Li Feng can understand now. The only regret is that although Taj Kama also forges magic weapons by himself, but on how to forge a magic dress, Ancient One said that the information is available, but the specific operation is obviously beyond the reach of Li Feng, a rookie. As for the clothes such as magic robe woven before, Li Feng said that Ancient One can't afford it at a friendly price. He is not a rich man. In addition, he didn't find a job to practice magic. He just did some odd jobs to earn some pocket money. And before buying some equipment to exercise, now Li Feng has less than $10,000 in his pocket. Kamatage is the site of Ancient One after all. Li Feng wants to live for a while. It's nothing. I believe Ancient One won't say much, but he treats Kamatage as his own home. Li Feng can't do it for the time being. Attribute issues are vulnerable to the prejudice of this group of righteous magicians. In case they want to come to the scene to eliminate demons, does Li Feng want to be beaten to death by a group or be strangled to death by Mordu? So he has already figured out how to spend the remaining $10,000, such as buying a second-hand RV, buying a large tent and some outdoor daily necessities, while traveling aimlessly, and traveling to other worlds to continue traveling. It is estimated that these $10,000 are not enough for him to spend. Where can the spare money buy magic robe? In one question and one answer, the time came quietly to noon. Li Feng got up to express his gratitude to Ancient One. Ancient One smiled and nodded, reminding, to use time and portal travel, you need to try many times and grasp the degree, otherwise you will find that you have only been out for a day and returned to this world but found that a year has passed. Li Feng is also helpless for the imbalance between the two world timelines, just as he has only been in the world of the magician apprentice for less than half a month, but he returned to the Marvel world to see the time. Okay, more than one time passed. Months. This is only one of the worlds. One day he went to Ancient One and said that one day is equal to Marvel a year and it would be over. When he returned from other worlds, he found that the purple sweet potato essence had all snapped his fingers and ruined infinite gems, and the heroes exchanged all the gems back in the past. Where did he cry? If you want to know something about traveling through time, you have to face the Eye of Agamotto in Kamatage, but that thing Ancient One wants to lend to Li Feng to study other magicians and they disagree. Why can an outsider get the intimacy of Ancient One? Is there any adultery in it? How do you ask Li Feng to answer? Say Ancient One likes men with small belly. Li Feng can be drowned in the saliva of the magicians without Ancient One's shot. Fortunately, there are not many worlds that study time. For example, the world of Harry Potter, which is basically safe as long as you don't die. Hermione uses time-related props because she has signed up for all courses. It's a pity that Li Feng knows that he doesn't know what world he will appear in after crossing. If he can't land in Harry's world, he can only catch blindly. In the afternoon, I was still in the meeting room, but this time it became Li Feng showing off the magic ring of Merlin in front of Ancient One and performing the spirit body to increase his mana in the magic ring of Merlin. To be honest, Li Feng is still a little worried about showing his spirit body out of his body in front of Ancient One. Is it possible to explain why his spiritual body is abnormal because of quantum energy? Fortunately, Ancient One didn't notice any abnormality in Li Feng's spirit body. She only felt that Li Feng thought that his spiritual body's spell mastery was imperfect, which caused a little nervousness in her heart. Relax, Ancient One said with a smile. Spellcasting is a delicate operation. You can't be too nervous, just like the more nervous you are in battle, the easier it is to fail. On the contrary, it is more helpful to cast a spell with a normal mind. Quote. Li Feng smiled slightly on his face, but he was relieved, at least in Ancient One's tone of expression. She didn't see anything abnormal in his spiritual body. Taking a deep breath, Li Feng gently closed his eyes to gather energy in the magic ring of Merlin. Ancient One's familiarity with dark energy is not comparable to that of Li Feng. Li Feng's mana attributes can be seen at a glance, and he sighs slightly. The magician seedling who can travel to other worlds prefers mana to darkness, but this is his ability. As long as you keep your mentality unchanged, you can be like a normal person, and you don't need to be aware of the corrosion of dark energy at all times like me. It's just, this kid obviously can't stay in Kamatage for a long time. Fortunately, I have a relationship with him today. I hope that he, who has unlimited potential, can take care of Taj Kama when he grows up. Thinking of the future Ancient One, I looked out the window subconsciously. There was a man wearing apprentice costumes with blank eyes trying to practice. His name was Caecilius, who was also a whetstone prepared by Ancient One for Stephen Strange. At this moment, Ancient One was a bit hesitation. Li Feng didn't know how far his boat could cross, but Ancient One knew from years of experience in research time that as long as Li Feng wanted, his boat could be taken on board as long as it was a magical creature. Travel through together. This is not just props like Sling Ring and Magic Book, but it also includes creatures with mana. Unfortunately, Magician is also classified as a creature with mana. Compared with Doctor Strange, who grew up by Dormammu's constant torture and killing, a supreme magician who travels to other worlds to excuse his vision will obviously have stronger strength, and as long as Li Feng masters the timeline, Stephen may be able to grow into a competitor. After she was strong, she faced Dormammu's invasion. At that time Stephen will play Dormammu unnecessarily. It must be very exciting. It is a pity that my time does not allow me to see that scene. Forget it, since we have already planned it, don't break the original plan. As for Li Feng, just treat it as an accident insurance. Thinking of this, Ancient One interrupted Li Feng, who had gathered mana aloud, and explained several mistakes made by Li Feng's spiritual body when he came out of the body. Li Feng asked humbly to record these experiences in the magic book. These are the places that Ancient One personally pointed out. As long as he understands these, the time for Li Feng's spiritual body out of the body can be increased several times. By the way, Li Feng has more. Time allows the spirit body to stay in Merlin's magic circle to increase its mana. In the next few days, Li Feng learned the mirror space spell from Ancient One. Although he can't release the mirror space with his hands as smartly as the Ancient One, he has made a lot of progress. At least after a gesture, he can successfully release the mirror space. For him who was preparing to travel, he had an undisturbed place to practice spells. Chapter 11. Taj Library. Li Feng smiled and handed the small note issued by Ancient One to the librarian with a bad face. Although knowledge can be shared in Taj, the books in the library allow magicians to borrow at any time, but it also depends on who borrows them. First of all, ordinary people must not be able to borrow, and secondly, foreign magicians like Li Feng. These are all the knowledge that Taj has collected hard by magicians in the past generations. Why should I lend it to outsiders for free? They read the books carefully for fear of damaging them. So the librarian's attitude towards Li Feng can be imagined how bad it is, and among the small notes that Ancient One issued to Li Feng, some of them are from the private collection of Ancient One Magician, which makes the administrator even more uncomfortable. Li Feng doesn't care whether this familiar administrator is upset, as long as he can borrow the book he wants to read, he won't be upset. What can he do if he is upset now? Not to mention whether he can beat the manager. Even if he can beat Taj, there are magicians who can open portals. Where can he go? And Li Feng remembers that Caecilius would chop his head with a double axe at the end of this manager buddy. It's great to write down this little uncomfortable first. When this buddy sleeps in the cemetery, Li Feng will rub his head on his grave. This is the devil, the pace of the dance step. Taking the book from the administrator's reluctant eyes, Li Feng went straight back to his room, while reaching out to hold the magic book while using a translation tool to translate the magician book in holy place and read it aloud. Li Feng doesn't have the ability of Basto to reach out and record the knowledge on the magic book, so he can only use the most traditional method to record, that is, he is reading aloud here, and the magic book over there automatically uses the way of writing the collected sounds, record on file. Definitely, this is also a little troublesome, such as needing a quiet environment, otherwise it will appear when reading aloud on the road, and there will be a car horn every few lines in the content of the magic book. Similarly, this also requires Li Feng to have a standard pronunciation when reading aloud, otherwise there will be typos. After the recording is completed, Li Feng also needs to check the contents of the record, because the magic book said that it is only responsible for recording, and it is not responsible for the occurrence of typos and polyphonic characters. Fortunately, it is much more convenient to correct typos than to copy the entire book with a pen. Otherwise, Li Feng would not wear it in Taj for a month, but on an annual basis. Among these transcribed books, the most valuable is Ancient One's private collection. Basically, the books that Ancient One allows to lend to Li Feng are more or less related to time. This is related to the spells that Basto left in the magic book to explain the flow of time in detail. Although these spells only control the flow of time, they do not turn time around like the Eye of Agamotto, but they still have a lot to Ancient One. Inspired. At least Ancient One after reading these methods said that after more than a month of research, she has been able to control the flow of time on certain items without using the Eyes of Agamotto, such as making a cyan apple quickly ripe, or slow down the ripening period of the apple, let it hang on the tree for 10,000 years without thinking of ripening. Although these spells have not been applied to living creatures yet, this is also a great progress. In addition, in time, Ancient One said that he can reach the record in the magic book in the future. Not to mention the use of time spells on living creatures, it will not disturb the seemingly peaceful time as long. Originally Ancient One should be grateful to Barstow, but it is obviously impossible for Ancient One to go to Otherworld and Barstow to thank him in person, so these Thanksgiving gifts have naturally become Li Feng's collection. After a month of non-stop copying and recording, Li Feng finally recorded all the books on Taj's basic spellcasting. On this day, Ancient One found Li Feng who was about to pack his luggage and said, "It looks like you are going to leave." Li Feng was a little embarrassed. During this period of time, Taj was not regarded as Ancient One's private teaching. He also ate for nothing and gained many benefits for nothing. What he paid was only a magic book that recorded a small number of spells, and this magic book is still lying quietly in his backpack, which is not awkward. Li Feng scratched his head and said, "You have something to do with me." Ancient One nodded, waved his hand to cover the mirror space and said, "I am very interested in how you travel through, so I want to see how you travel through before you leave." Ancient One's request is not difficult. Li Feng put his luggage on the ground after thinking about it for half a second. He took off some debris on his body and said, "Master, I don't know how long the world will pass when I come back. I'm afraid of me. Some of the dry food prepared has expired, so can you help me prepare some dry food again after I come back? It's not that I can't bear the small amount of money, but..." With only a pair of square shorts left, Li Feng stood up with a small belly and said with a trace of embarrassment, "It's because I really don't have much money." Looking at Li Feng, who is wearing a sling ring in his left hand, a ring inlaid with a huge red magic gem in his right hand, holding a magic book in both hands, and is ready to cross Li Feng, Ancient One nodded with a smile. He said that he would prepare some dry food for Li Feng. Even if he prepared enough dry food for Li Feng for a lifetime, it would be fine. Everything was ready. Li Feng took a deep breath and closed his eyes to activate the quantum energy in his body. When the body suffered tearing pain, Li Feng opened his face seriously, stretched his left hand forward, and quickly made a circle with his right hand. A blue and white portal with a hint of green light appeared in front of Ancient One. Before Ancient One looked at it carefully, the portal instantly rushed towards Li Feng and swallowed it. As the portal disappeared, only the square shorts that Li Feng wore before were left on the ground. It proves that Li Feng has traveled to other worlds. Ancient One carries his hands on his back, and perceptions of the residual energy in the air. After a while, the calm eyes of Ancient One reveals envy. It is a magical traversal, backed by countless worlds, even if I have poor aptitude. If I had this kind of adventure back then, I wouldn't have to take the risk of absorbing dark energy. With a wave of her hand, Ancient One crossed the portal and walked out of the mirrored space, but before Ancient One walked out of Li Feng's room, she suddenly noticed the strangeness behind her. Ancient One turned his head to look, only to see a naked and shaggy beard from a blue and white light curtain. Li Feng. So fast. Ancient One's brain full of question marks, thinking, Li Feng will not return immediately after crossing the past. No, it's not like the beard on his face hasn't been shaved in a few days, at least I haven't shaved it for a month, right? Rubbing his dizzy temples, Li Feng calmed down the violent quantum energy in his body, while taking out his coat from his luggage and putting it on, saying, "Master, you won't come to my room every day during this period and wait for me to come back." Bar. Ancient One shook his head slightly, and said, "Since you passed through, you came back before I could leave your room." Li Feng was stunned. Hesitation said, "You mean I have been in another world for half a year, and how many seconds have passed since the local world?" "Half a year." Ancient One nodded and smiled and looked at Li Feng, and said, "It looks like you have worked very hard in the past 6 months. At least the mana in your body has increased by a lot. If you are not tired, you can tell me what you went, world." Although Li Feng hasn't shaved for a while, it seems a bit vicissitudes of life, but to say that he is not mentally exhausted. After all, his current mental power has improved a lot, but Li Feng is somewhat helpless because of the magic content of the world he travels to. It is not high, which forces him to focus on the improvement of mental power to achieve finer manipulation of spells, thereby saving mana consumption when casting spells. Scratching his head, Li Feng sat down on the bed and said, "You know, I can only go to a world with an earth, and there is still a world with mysterious side power, this time is the same." As Li Feng slowly said, Ancient One understood that Li Feng had gone to an earth in the timeline just after the end of the American Civil War. In that era, a soldier named Jonah Hax was dissatisfied with the order of his superior General Turnbull to slaughter the hospital. He shot his superior's son and retired. However, this general was not easy to provoke, so he brought his younger brother to look for him. Hux avenged his revenge and let him watch his family be burned alive after he tied him. The story also begins. Hux, who was tied up and waited to die, was faithful. When he was dying, he was rescued by a group of Arakoa Indians, and under the treatment of a witch doctor, he obtained the ability to communicate with dead men. No matter how Hux seeks revenge on Turnbull, Li Feng is only interested in the ability to communicate with dead men, so he inquired all the way after getting information about the crow from Hux's mouth, until he found the crow a few months later and learned how to deal with it. Dead man communicated. In fact, in Li Feng's view, the skill of communicating with dead man is more like a variant used with the spirit body. Just like when Hax communicates with dead man, he needs to touch the decedent with his hand, so that the soul projection of the decedent returns from the underworld to the body in front of him, and this projection is a variant application of a certain spirit body. It is also because ordinary people can't see the spirit body, so in the eyes of Hux, these dead man will return to the appearance of a living person, but in the eyes of others, Hux is only talking to a decaying corpse. As for some of the remaining medical treatments of the crow, Li Feng only took a look and stayed away from preparing to learn. Look at how the group of witch doctors are treated. First give yourself some drugs to make yourself dizzy, and then treat them. Seeing Li Feng's eyelids jumped. Brother, are you trying to save others or are you going to be cool? As for whether the rescued can survive, in the words of witch doctors, they have no after-sales service. They have saved their credit, but have not saved them. Have the ability to get out of the ground and bite him. Ma Dan, what can Li Feng, a witch doctor like this, do after he returns to the Marvel world? Do you dance? So after learning how to communicate with Deadman, Li Feng returned directly to the Marvel world. The only thing he didn't expect was the time gap between the two worlds. Guangdong is Wenju Zan Washong. This is Wenju crossing Otherworld. After the accident, although Ancient One suggested that Li Feng take a day off, Li Feng still chose to leave. After tidying up his personal hygiene, Li Feng went straight back to New York from Kamatage's portal. In addition to preparing to buy a second-hand RV, Li Feng made plans for the future at Otherworld, such as buying some solitaires and making magic props. Before leaving, Ancient One specially called Li Feng, who was carrying a shoulder bag, to the living room for the final mention. Waved to open the mirror space, Ancient One walked into the mirror space with his hands behind his back. Li Feng hesitation, he was a little confused about what Ancient One wanted to do. When Li Feng walked into the mirrored space, Ancient One smiled and asked, Austin, do you know which attribute your mana is biased toward? Li Feng heaved a sigh of relief. At the beginning, he was puzzled by the Ancient One teaching and taught why he came to a place with first-class confidentiality like mirror space to preach. I thought you found an abnormality in the depths of my soul during these more than 1 month. It hurts my heart to plop and jump around. It's really inconvenient to talk about dark mana in a group of righteous magicians like Kamatage. If someone hears that Li Feng will die, it is estimated that the only idea of the group of magicians is to kill Li Feng on the spot without paying attention to Ancient One. Li Feng of the province became a scourge when he grew up. It turned out that I was talking to me because I found that my mana was biased towards the dark. But also, Basto could see at a glance that my mana was biased towards the dark. Ancient One, who also lived and didn't know the years, couldn't see it. It's weird to come out. Li Feng nodded slightly to indicate that he knew about it, and at the same time signaled Ancient One to continue. In fact, Ancient One's warning to Li Feng was nothing. Barstow also warned Li Feng at the beginning, but Barstow meant that Li Feng should not be exposed to dark energy, and he directly concealed Li Feng's flame attribute bias towards darkness. Ancient One's attitude towards dark energy is much more interesting, not only telling Li Feng that the flame attributes are also biased towards darkness, but also telling Li Feng how to adapt to dark energy and control them instead of being corroded by dark energy. Li Feng also thought about it. The big man in front of him has an understanding of dark energy that ordinary people can't compare. Ancient One not only uses dark energy, but is also a strong person who firmly resists the temptation and corrosion of darkness. Obviously, Li Feng's attitude will be much better, and Li Feng's mana is inherently biased towards darkness. No one can reverse this, nor can Ancient One. Definitely, Ancient One would not say anything to Li Feng that she is a stupid thing to use dark energy. The so-called knowing people knowing the face and not knowing the heart, who knows what Li Feng will do after knowing her little secret. Ancient One doesn't want Kamatage to split up. In this regard, Ancient One just taught Li Feng some of his own experience of resisting dark energy in a vague way, such as using the story of human ancestors to evolve from a single cell into a fish, and then to an adult to warn Li Feng, what is slow and ready. Too hasty. Terran magician is like a fish living in fresh water, and the air in the water is like the magic power that magician relies on. Those magicians who do not seek to be motivated are like living in a freshwater lake, and they spend it all alone, while those who are motivated, those with shallow qualifications rely on magic power to become amphibians and occasionally come ashore to sea, or those with superior qualifications evolve long organs. Roar directly inhales oxygen, thus completely boarding the vast land. But evolution is also different, just like water, freshwater and seawater is like dark energy. Don't think carp can adapt to most environments, but you can try to throw the carp into the sea and die by salting it in different species to become a salted fish. The mana of this freshwater carp Li Feng is biased towards darkness, and it is destined that he can only enter the ocean. Definitely, the carp named Li Feng is not strong enough at present. Once he can't even think about entering the ocean directly, he can only be killed by the corrosion of the sea. What Ancient One wants to express is to first make Li Feng become stronger, and then to find an entrance to the sea that adapts to the seawater environment to survive for a period of time, wait for the mana to evolve itself into the brackish water that adapts to the sea, and then enter the vast sea. When talking about entering the sea, Li Feng noticed a trace of unnatural and subtle sadness on Ancient One's face. Li Feng resisted the urge to scratch his brow, lest Ancient One found out that he was complaining about Ancient One's use of dark energy at this moment. Li Feng understood that Ancient One was so high on its own qualifications that it failed to find the right entrance to the sea, and directly connected to the Sea of Dormammu, the big man, causing the sea to be too salty and causing Ancient One to be corroded by dark energy. Ancient One does have two brushes, and now the seat of the Supreme Magician has long been replaced. But Ancient One can't resist the corrosion of dark energy for long. After Doctor Strange came out, he received a box lunch. While feeling sorry for Ancient One, Li Feng said respectfully, "Don't worry, Master, I am backing countless worlds. As long as I am careful with some potentials, there is no need to take risks for the sake of strength." After squeezing his fists, Li Feng said impassionedly, "Take shortcuts and you will surely kill yourself. You can only reach the top one step at a time on the Magician Road, I understand." The corners of Ancient One's eyes twitched slightly. This statement seemed to imply that I was taking a shortcut to absorb the dark energy. Even in the ocean on the earth, there are still some places that are saltier. This is like a dangerous area hidden in the dark energy. Even if you can only swim in the ocean in the future, you need to always be careful. Li Feng nodded with a serious face, indicating that he understands the truth, and he will proceed carefully on the magic road. What should be said is also said. As for whether Li Feng is like he said, step by step, Ancient One is not Li Feng's mother. Whatever he does, saying that this has made Li Feng have a good impression of Taj, that's enough. Ns. It can be seen that Ancient One's heart for Taj's future development has been fragmented, and he can't fight back. After opening the portal and saying goodbye to Ancient One, Li Feng borrowed Taj's portal to the holy place in New York. After chatting with Daniel a few words, Li Feng, who walked out of the holy place in New York, looked back at the holy place. I don't know why, Li Feng always felt that Ancient One had the same attitude towards him as he did to his son, and was broken. Shrugging his shoulders, Li Feng said to himself, "Why don't you think I'm a son? It's great, what good stuff I will collect in the future will make Ancient One eye up. If Ancient One likes my collection, I will send her to her. Some are okay. By the way, where did the guy who contacted the seller of second-hand RVs come from?" Li Feng patted his forehead and said to himself, "It seems to be in Louisiana. The largest city there is called New Orleans." Li Feng, who licked his lips, wondering if New Orleans would have a chicken drumstick, walked towards the unmanned corner, preparing to practice the portal along the way, and rush all the way to Louisiana. As soon as Li Feng walked into an unmanned alley, he found a Harley motorcycle parked behind him. He walked down from the car. 2 earrings were worn on his ears. He was wearing a leather jacket with rivets. He was dressed in punk style. People combination. To talk about the biggest feature of the United States, it has to be mentioned that there are many robbers. Compared to a profession that requires a certain skill like a thief, robbery is obviously simpler. Just show the muscles to intimidate it, and the more difficult ones are. Just drew out the dagger and gestured a few times, and the top class probably took a pistol and robbed it. By the way, the thief will be looked down upon by inmates after being caught in prison in the United States. This will make the prison guards in the same prison feel embarrassed. For historical reasons, they prefer to show muscles rather than technology. Definitely, if you steal into the federal government, the Central Reserve is another matter. It is no longer ordinary technical work, but talent. Li Feng didn't need to ask anything to understand that this was a robbery, and the target of the robbery was naturally the one who swaggered through the market with a shoulder bag on his back. Maiden, does it mean I have money if I carry a single-room bag? Although there is indeed money in the bag, it is my only property. It gives you what I eat and drink. By the way, how many times have I encountered a robbery? Counting from the time I came to this world, in 2 years, as long as I go out at night, I will encounter a robbery 1/5 of the time. This is a chaotic law and order. However, it was the first time I encountered a robbery during the day. It is a rare experience. I hope that I will give you a good comment after I grab you. Turning his shoulder bag behind him to prevent it from falling off in a fight, he looked up to see if there was a camera nearby. The corner of Li Feng's mouth raised slightly and said, "Two black and white brothers, how about we talk about it? You give me money. I won't slap your handsome faces." Among the robbers, the black buddy felt that he was underestimated. He stretched out his hand and drew the dagger from his waist with a fierce look. He said, "Yellow monkey, do you know who you are talking to?" Li Feng raised his brows and said, speaking to a descendant of a slave who was caught by the grapevine and brought only white teeth to the United States. Obviously, the black, yellow monkey, said that roar made Li Feng very upset. The black man was stunned. He didn't know what the Portuguese had to do with him, but he clearly understood the word slave. He swiped the dagger in his hand against Li Feng a few times, and he seemed to be able to send out an invisible sword that hurt Li Feng. His anger at the moment. The white guy behind the black obviously knew that among the first European colonists to arrive in Africa, the Portuguese was the first to sell black slaves. Seeing that his partner didn't even know his own history, he couldn't help but ridicule. It's just that the white man knows he's still in the robbery. At the moment, it's not suitable to talk about the history of black brothers. He smiled and drew a dagger to look at Li Feng's shoulder bag, and then at the huge ruby on Li Feng's right index finger. Actually, it's a magic gem, thinking. Such a big gem, I don't know if it is true or false, so I grab it first, and throw away the false one. If it's true, luxury cars, beautiful women. The white man was greedy and said in a vicious voice, "Honestly, throw the ring and bag in your hand to us, or the cutie in my hand will measure how deep your chrysanthemum is. Just a few words, let me give you magic items. Do you think that you or Naruto will be the strongest mouth escape?" Li Feng glanced at the charming sound of the Harley motorcycle engine behind them. Although Li Feng didn't know much about motorcycles, he also knew that the suspected modified, Prince Edward, motorcycle in front of him was very valuable. "Anyway, I can't afford it." I force Li Feng to ignore the small dagger in the hand of the black and white combination, and think, "This is all right, I choose to practice the portal spell. How about riding this slick motorcycle to Louisiana?" The inexplicable laughter of the white brothers and Li Feng's ignorance made the black man a little irritable and roared with ferocious words, "Yellow monkey, what do you see?" The black voice made Li Feng look at the two of them, with a deep sense of badness in his eyes. First called the roar problem, and now it still makes me fall into the choice difficulty syndrome. It depends on whether I am bullied or what. I will let you know the consequences of provoking a magician, even if I am just an apprentice who can rub fireballs. Faced with two robbers who felt the wind blown down, Li Feng didn't even bother to rub the fireball. He directly used his fists to make the two black and white combinations of overdose of marijuana lie on the ground and doubt their life. Watching Li Feng riding their motorcycles and walking away, the two looked at the empty wallets on the ground in the distance, which belonged to them. It is said that he robbed others, and the other party was thrown 3 punches and kicks. The other party also snatched his brother's only $50. That's fine, the other party's contemptuous eyes, and scolded himself for being poor before he left. "What do you mean? Don't the robbers want face?" The black man rubbed his blue nose and swollen cheeks and looked at the white man, who was also beaten into a pig's head, and asked, "What should we do now? Shall we call the police?" White man, "Call the police? How are you going to tell the police, uncle? The guy who said we wanted to rob not only beat us into pigs, but also took away our only money and the motorcycle that we had just stolen. By the way, is my buddy stupid, who can even forget his own history? Or did he drop out of school before finishing kindergarten?" The white man patted his butt and got up. He didn't even look at the black man with a question mark. He had already decided to do it alone. Otherwise, my black buddy will cheat himself one day. On the other side, Li Feng rode his stolen motorcycle all the way to Louisiana, and bought a few boxes of playing cards when he passed a convenience store. Until night fell, Li Feng discarded the fuel-free motorcycle on the side of the road, and went straight into the bushes not far from the road. Riding a motorcycle to pull the wind is a little bit more windy, but this thing was snatched. What if the Black and White brothers call the police and call the police? Li Feng is determined to become a magician. How can he give up the opportunity to train the portal when he is greedy to pull the wind? Anyway, Li Feng would not admit that he felt sorry for the gas money. I'm talking about it. Is that a bit of gas money? Don't know that Harley-Davidson motorcycles are also considered a big gas guzzler. Finding a wide and relatively clean place in the sparsely growing bushes, Li Feng used pyromancer to light a bonfire, took out some magic materials from his shoulder bag, and opened a box of beautifully packaged playing cards. After spending half a year in the world of Jonah hacks, Li Feng has been able to rub fireballs skillfully, but for Li Feng, whose mana is still scarce, fireballs are not suitable for combat. The first is power. In addition to being able to ignite furry creatures like cats and dogs, it is also difficult to ignite a living person. At most, it makes people burn. If the person hit by the fireball quickly takes off the burning coat, maybe even no burns. Secondly, the flight speed of the fireball is too slow, which is similar to that of a children's toy gun. People with more flexibility can easily avoid it, leaving Li Feng wasting little mana in vain. The last is the casting speed. Li Feng can't do instant fireball at present. Is it possible that Li Feng still expects his opponent to stand stupidly and wait for him to complete the spell, waiting for the fireball to hit his face without dodge? If he really wanted to meet such a stupid opponent, Li Feng directly drew a knife and stabbed a few knives to solve the opponent. Therefore, in order to currently have long-range attack power, Li Feng can only choose to make spellcasting props in addition to buying firearms. It's a pity that Li Feng feels that firearms don't match the identity of the magician, and that firearms are not magic props. They are not allowed to be taken to another world when passing through. In addition, Li Feng took some magic materials for nothing when he lived in Kamatage, so he naturally chose firearms. Forget about it. As for choosing playing cards as a magic carrier, Li Feng is also helpless. Originally, flying darts is more suitable for synthesis as a spellcasting tool. However, Li Feng believes that it is still difficult to light flying darts, and he also carries flying darts with him. Playing cards. What kind of items do you think is easier to bring to the police? How can I explain to the police after going through the security check? And how many flying darts can carry? What about playing cards? It's easy to catch fire and the police don't care about it. The key is lightness. Even if there is a box in each of the trouser pockets, outsiders can't easily find it. A box of playing cards can be 54 cards, and 2 boxes are 100. Many, who can carry more than 100 flying darts with you? The weight of flying darts alone is enough for the user to drink a pot, let alone fighting flexibly. At midnight, Li Feng admired the freshly released playing cards with runes engraved on the front and Merlin's magic ring on the back, and he secretly relieved. Regarding the few magical materials left, Li Feng twitched the corners of his eyes and clamped the playing cards between his fingertips to watch repeatedly, and the corners of his mouth muttered, "It's not easy." It was a waste of most of the materials to successfully make 20 magic playing cards with Fireball. I don't know how powerful it is, but don't let me down. This is a prop I came up with after conceiving it for half a year. Thinking of this, Li Feng turned his head to look for the target with a little excitement. Except for stones in the wilderness, Li Feng could only pretend that the stones in the distance were enemies, took a deep breath, waved and shot out the playing cards in his hand. As the playing cards hit the stone under the control of mental power, a fireball burst open suddenly. Li Feng nodded with satisfaction. The rate of fire is similar to that of a crossbow arrow, but the crossbow arrow is a straight flight, and the playing cards are not straight. It's a pity that my mental power control range is only 10 meters, so the enemy can only make the poker cards hit the target accurately within 10 meters of my body, but it is only now. As long as I continue to practice, sooner or later I can reach 100 meters, kilometers. Sitting back by the bonfire, Li Feng experienced the mana consumption required for lacing playing cards. After a while, Li Feng grinned to himself and said, "Not bad, probably only consumes 1/3 of the fireball mana, and the power it's a bit bigger than the fireball technique I released. Turning his head and looking at the cracked rocks baked by the fireball, Li Feng, who didn't want to admit that his own fireball technique was a exhibe goods, mumbled and added, "It's only a little bit bigger, just a little bit." Early in the morning, Li Feng, who was meditating cross-legged, opened his eyes and got up to jogging on the road to exercise. Half an hour later, his hands and feet were fully moved. Li Feng, who was slightly sweaty, took out a pack of compressed biscuits from his backpack and ate with relish. The beef-flavored compressed dry food is so delicious. Li Feng said that he can eat 10 packs at a time, but when he thinks of the price, Li Feng distressedly ate 2 packs and said he had stomachache and couldn't eat it anymore. A few days later, Li Feng finally rushed to Louisiana, not to mention, after passing through the portals of this way, Li Feng didn't have to pose for a long time to open the portals, although he was not as cool and comfortable as the Ancient One, he couldn't used in battle, but Li Feng thought it would be fine to give him a few seconds of casting time to escape. Passing by the backyard of a seller selling second-hand RVs, Li Feng glanced at the backyard with a private small plane, and when he walked to the main entrance, he saw a sci-fi colored plane parked on the side of the road in the distance. He mumbled, "That one is good in the backyard." Explain, it was probably sprayed with pesticides, but what does the one on the roadside do? Is it for traveling? With envious eyes, Li Feng knocked on the door and thought, it's really a rich family. No wonder an 80% new RV is sold so cheaply. It's not in vain that I rushed all the way from New York to pick up the bargain. At this moment, a beautiful woman in white short sleeves opened the door. Li Feng stretched out his hand to shake hands and smiled and said, "Hello, is this Maria Rambo?" "This is Austin. We were on the phone before. Talked about." Before Li Feng finished speaking, she was pulled into the room by the shining red right hand of the short-sleeved beauty, pinching her neck. With a bewildered look, Li Feng subconsciously prepared to resist, but a huge amount of energy came from the short-sleeved beauty's red-lighted right hand, instantly causing Li Feng's mana to be chaotic, and he lost his ability to resist. When Li Feng, who was pulled into the room, was still wondering when he had offended this beauty in the transcendent realm, he heard the other sneer and said, "Talos, next time I figure out that a tramp on planet C-53 will not be polite. Knock on the door." Glancing at Li Feng's flip-flops, the beauty raised her brows and said, "Just one more word, your slippers are very tasteful." At the moment, Li Feng's attention was neither on the beauty of pinching his neck nor admiring the figure of the beauty, but on the black man behind the beauty. Li Feng knew this black man. Although this guy was neither one-eyed nor bald now, Li Feng still recognized at a glance that the other party was the famous Fury agent, that is, the non-chief who would sit on the throne of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future. "Ma Dan, I just came here to buy a second-hand RV from a long distance. Do you want to be so unlucky to encounter a bitter egg?" Looking at Fairy who still has hair, Li Feng, who can't be called Roar Fury at present, curls his lips and thinks, "Sorry, the image of your bald head is too popular, so please forgive me for ignoring your short hair." Hearing the beauty calling himself Roar, Li Feng blinked innocently and looked at the beauty, and said, "Wait, I am not a Talos, I just came to buy a second-hand car." The name of Talos called out in the other party's mouth, plus Fury in the palm of the beautiful woman pinching her neck with red light. Li Feng already knows who this beautiful woman is, Carol Danface, also called Captain Marvel. Li Feng felt that he was a bit wronged. He wanted to say to Carol, who looked at him with a puzzled look, "Hello Captain Marvel, I found the wrong address. Goodbye. Ma Dan, if you want to be so moldy, you can meet Fury when you buy a car. What is more, I delivered it to the door myself. Although I am planning to get close to infinite gems and I am concerned by S.H.I.E.L.D. the plan, but it's definitely not me in my weak childhood. I think that when I am strong and have a certain right to speak, I will let you pay attention to me." Speaking of the Screws Commander Talos, isn't there an infinite gems on the Kree cruise ship that he is looking for? Should I take the opportunity to grab it? Before Li Feng finished thinking about how he approached the Kree's cruise ship, he suddenly felt his hair standing on his body. Li Feng looked down at the direction that brought him a sense of danger, and saw a cute cat sniffing his toes while wandering constantly. The cat's eyes gave Li Feng an illusion that he was looking at food, and he was so frightened that he swallowed and shivered. In his heart, Li Feng, who wanted to cry without tears, only felt that he was going to be cold today, I forgot that there is still a bite. As a senior agent, Fury judged that the other party knew him when Li Feng subconsciously looked at him. Li Feng has been spending the past few days in the wilderness, and he has no time or tools to organize his personal hygiene, so his unshaven face covers a half of his ordinary face. Fury is a little puzzled. He thinks that even if Li Feng doesn't have these vicissitudes of beards, he can recognize him as long as he has seen him before. Fury, who has an excellent memory, can guarantee that he has never seen the Asian young man in front of him wearing whole jeans, dragging slippers, and holding his iconic belly. It's impossible for me to have a memory leak. An agent's memory is wrong, it's a joke. Fury will never admit that his judgment is wrong. He is very sure that this guy who calls himself Austin is very familiar with him, just like the other person has carefully observed himself in secret. Even if he turns into ashes, he can recognize him. Familiar. Fury frowned, and Fury thought, his identity confidentiality level is not low. Why the other party can recognize him at a glance? Is it because the hidden spy revealed to the other party? What is the identity of the other party, who is working for, and what is the purpose of coming here? For a moment, Fury's mind floated with the names of several powers, turning his attention to Carol and Li Feng, who was pinched by Carol. Fury secretly thought, ordinary people will have emotions such as fear and panic when they are pinched, but this person knows that Carol's hands are red, and there is no fear on his face. On the contrary, he always feels that the word, unlucky, is written on the other's face. Maybe the other party's goal is to get close to the amnesiac Carol. The group of hidden assholes in the game spread the news fast enough, which sent the idea to this lady who has returned from an alien and has extraordinary combat power. Before Fury could finish thinking about it, Maria Rambo, a black woman on the side, said that she had never seen an alien who could become a human being on Earth, and she did not believe that there were aliens who could shapeshift in this world, with a right face. Reached out apologetically to break Carol's hand, and said to Li Feng, "Sorry Mr. Austin, you also saw something went wrong in my house. The next day, we are talking about the RV. I will pay for the price." Making concessions. After speaking, Maria said to Carol with a helpless look, "Let go of him, he is just an ordinary person who came to talk to me about trading RVs." Hearing Maria's explanation, Li Feng twitched his mouth and nodded desperately, saying, "This lady, I'm just an ordinary person passing by soy sauce, let me go." I immediately disappeared before your eyes. Carol didn't believe that Li Feng was an ordinary person. The reason she dared to make her hands burn in red in front of Li Feng was because she perceived the energy that came out of her body when Li Feng wanted to resist herself before. Ordinary people would have energy. Lie to children. But Carol still let go, because she can be sure that there is no such strange energy in the scrolls, so she judges that Li Feng is more of an extraordinary person living on the earth. As to whether Li Feng will be right after letting go when he threatened himself, Carol said that he could easily choke the opponent's neck once, and could easily choke the opponent countless times. Seeing Carol finally let go of the hand holding his neck, Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief, rubbing his throat while hearing another knock on the door. With the experience of Carol pinching people into the room, Maria said nothing would let Carol open the door again. In case this girl of Roar pinches into a neighbor, how can she get along with the neighbor in the future? Get along. It's a pity that Carol's power is not comparable to Maria. Carol was pulled directly behind her, and Maria with a helpless look could only stand behind Carol, and she thought about what to do after opening the door. Explain to the guests outside the door. Fury glanced at Li Feng with a deep meaning, raising his pistol and hiding behind the door. Li Feng doesn't care whether the person outside is called Tom or Jerry, and whether Tom is Maria's neighbor or not. He just wants to leave as soon as possible, because he knows that the screw will appear in the house soon, and he wants to quit. Fury will not allow it either. After all, it is about the existence of aliens. How can an ordinary person know that? What if Li Feng talks about it everywhere? It's just that Li Feng didn't expect that Fury had already determined from his reaction that he was someone sent by a certain force to approach Carol, and he was destined not to let Li Feng leave easily. Before Li Feng could take a step, Fury had pointed his pistol at Li Feng and shook his finger at Li Feng at the same time, indicating that Li Feng should not move rashly, otherwise he would shoot. Feeling unable to dodge the bullet, Li Feng watched with a look of ill-fated Maria and closed the door after explaining a few words to the neighbor, Ma Dan, to finish. Sure enough, Behind Li Feng came the faint voice of Screw's commander Talos. You should be friendly to your neighbors, maybe you need to borrow from them someday. Before Talos finished speaking, he stared at Li Feng with his back facing him in a daze. As a shape-shifting race, the Skrulls can copy anyone's genes and change their appearance. At the same time, they can obtain the other's short-term memory when copying the other's genes, but Talos clearly realized that he can't copy Li Feng's genes, let alone know the other's genes. Memory of it. Is this still the Earthling I know about? The sturdy woman who was able to beat 20 warriors on the ground with her hands tied before will not say, how come another guy with unknown ability appears? Talos decided to take a sip of the milk tea in his hand and was shocked. Maiden, this product is by no means a human being on Earth. I just want to find family members to reunite. Whether this road is so difficult, there is a pervert with outstanding combat power. What aliens appear? As for being pointed at by Fury's pistol, Taros said that this is not a problem, he has backhands to make insurance, such as. Maria saw a green alien in a daze, then through the window she saw Taros's backhand, a Skrull who turned into her own appearance and talked to her daughter. After Maria finished saying, "What's going on?" in surprise, Talos, who recovered his eyes, turned to look at his Li Feng, and said, "As long as you don't kill me, she will be safe." Li Feng rolled his eyes to express helplessness when he was unable to leave at the moment. He knew that Talos had come here with sincerity to persuade Carol to tell the coordinates of his family, so for now, there will be no conflict between the two parties. As for Fury pointing his gun at Taros to express his anger at the fact that the other party became a boss, Li Feng didn't bother to care, and walked to the side to pour himself a glass of boiling water. These days he ate compressed dry food and drank it. It is water drawn from the air of mana, but mana gathering water is not a simple matter for Li Feng now, so Li Feng can tolerate thirst, and only gather some water to drink a sip when he can't stand it now. Very thirsty. After drinking the water, Li Feng sat on the sidelines and prepared to listen to the story. Anyway, I am idle, but there is no popcorn to eat, bad review. Li Feng, who had just sat down, felt a sense of danger coming from his feet again, and was frightened to back up a few steps in a hurry. At the same time, Talos was also frightened by the cat-like element eater named Cuckoo. He saw the tower. Rose was frightened and took a step back. Seeing that Talos was actually afraid of a cat, Carol picked up Cuckoo and approached Talos, jokingly said, "Cat. You are not afraid of this cat, are you? This is interesting." The guy who calls himself Austin is afraid that Carol the cat can understand. After all, some people are allergic to cats, but the dignified Skrull commander is actually afraid of a cat. Who will believe it? Talos stepped back with a look of horror and said, "This is not a cat, but an element-chewing beast. Essential devouring beast." Fury felt that this was the biggest joke in the world. When did the domestic cat on Earth become the fierce beast in the universe? Does the dog on Earth have a more domineering name? What about the lions and tigers that can easily kill cats in seconds? Is it possible that in the eyes of aliens it is a swallowing beast? It can be said that except for Li Feng, everyone here is a joke. What can Li Feng say about it? Said this is really the elemental devouring beast. Who believes it? Moreover, with Fury's character, he is now ready to investigate Li Feng's face up to the sky. When Fury sees the original cheek beast, how can he explain it? Fury imprisoned Li Feng, pinched his neck and asked, "Say, which planet are you an alien from?" After all, only aliens know what a metamorphosis beast is, right? But Talos obviously wanted to pull Li Feng into the water, and pointed to Li Feng and said, "Look, he knows this is not a cat." "Ma Dan, I'm just a watcher." Li Feng rubbed his aching forehead, took a drink from the glass to hide the embarrassment on his face and said that he didn't know anything. Putting down the water glass, Li Feng said quietly, I have a urgency, can." Before Li Feng's words were finished, Fury interrupted, "I want to release the water, too. I'll go with you." Touching the pistol that can give Fury a sense of security, he looked at Li Feng suspiciously. This guy is by no means easy. He still looks calm when he sees aliens. Either he knew the existence of aliens a long time ago, or he is also an alien. I've seen people eating and drinking together, but it's really rare for two men to put water together. Rolling his eyes at Fury, Li Feng shrugged and said, "I'm not afraid that I will run away. If you want to follow along, just tell me, what excuses are there? Even if I spread the news about seeing aliens, someone will believe me. Fury looked at Li Feng sarcastically, with an expression of, I just want to release water, nothing more. In his heart, I don't care if others believe that there are aliens on the earth, I just want to know who you are. When Li Feng and Fury returned to the living room, they saw everyone staying in the study and staring at the computer screen with sorrow. Li Feng understood that this was the computer loading the black box that Carol used to drive the Lightspeed engine fighter, but the current computer on Earth, the slow download speed makes Talos have the urge to smash the computer. Fury didn't want to let Li Feng know too much. He wanted Li Feng to stay in the living room, but then he wouldn't be able to hear the content in the black box. At this moment, Fury wished that a subordinate by his side could help him take care of Li Feng. No way, Fury could only let Li Feng walk into the study and comfort himself. Since the other party knows even the aliens, it's not bad to know more. For a long time, the computers in the study that were all antiques in Li Feng's eyes were finally loaded. Taros, who was standing aside, was also relieved. He was really afraid that this broken computer could make his legs numb when loaded. This isn't it a waste of my time? Don't know how much I miss my family now. On the side, Carol was stunned listening to the voice recordings in the computer, and the images of him being chased by alien fighters when he was driving the fighter plane when he was carrying out the Pegasus plan were constantly in his mind. When Carol understood the source of his extraordinary power, and wondered whether he had been deceived by the supreme leader of the Kree for the past 6 years, or whether the recordings in the black box were faked, he ran out of the room with panic and dazedness, and his mind was full. It's a question mark of who I am and where I am. Maria worried that her friend could not stand the blow and ran out, ready to comfort Carol, who was confused. Also behind Carol was Talos, who didn't want to miss the chance to reunite with his family. In the room, only Li Feng and Fury were left. After drinking, Fury touched his pistol and asked, "You said your name is Austin." Li Feng spread his hands and said, "Should I praise you for your memory? It's been so long and you still remember my name. It's been so long, less than half an hour. With your current attitude, I want to imprison you until you die." Fury touched his pistol and prepared to frighten Li Feng by drawing his gun. Li Feng felt helpless when he saw this. He was not sure if the future non-chief would actually shoot himself. "Although I am always prepared for the magic shield to not be afraid of your broken spear, it is better not to expose my ability. Isn't it good for an Angson to let me watch Captain Marvel vs. Aliens? It really doesn't work. Can't you think of me as a soy sauce eater?" Scratching his eyebrows, Li Feng looked at the pistol pointed at him, shrugged helplessly and said, "Well, my name is Austin, what do you always order?" Fury doesn't care whether Li Feng alludes to himself being confused. He only cares about whether the other party speaks under the threat of a pistol. As long as he masters the rhythm of the dialogue, as a senior agent, he can always find clues in the cobweb horse trails. Only Austin. What about the full name? Knowing only the name of Austin and a shaggy face, Fury is confident that he can find some information about the other party, but it takes a lot of time to investigate. You need to know that there are not as many street surveillances in the future. It really depends on Fury to investigate slowly. I am afraid that the information found is out of date and I don't know how long. Sitting in the chair with his back leaning on the back of the chair, Li Feng tilted Erlang's legs and thought for a while, and said, "Want to know more? It's very simple. You just need to learn to speak a paragraph with me and make sure to speak clearly. I'll tell you how old I am and I wet the bed." Fury frowned. If he is simply learning to speak, he would not be afraid. After all, he is a multilingual talent, even Chinese. After thinking about it, Fury nodded and agreed to Li Feng's request. Before he wanted to come, listen to what Li Feng was going to learn to say and consider other things. He didn't believe it anymore. Just learn to speak, how difficult it would be. He stretched out his hand and made a request, and then Fury heard Li Feng say with a dazed expression, "Red Carp has a little green donkey named Li Qufan, Green Carp has a little red donkey named Lu Lily, and Red Carp said the family's Li Duan often is greener than the Green Carp's Lu Lily. The Green Carp said his family's Lu Lily is redder than the Red Carp's Li Duan. I don't know whether the Green Carp is redder than the Red Carp's donkey, or the Red Carp is more red than the Green Carp. Donkey green." After speaking, Li Feng stretched out his right hand to Fury, raised a finger and said, as long as you say the above passage quickly and clearly, you can ask any questions. Fury was a little confused. He heard that this is a Chinese tongue twister, but what is the operation of a foreigner learning tongue twister? Even if he pulls his tongue out on the spot, he can't tell the complete tongue twister. With bad eyes, Fury raised the muzzle slightly and aimed at Li Feng's forehead. Li Feng calmly ignored the pistol in front of him. Do you think the energy gun in your hand can penetrate my magic shield? Save it, you are not the captain of Captain Marvel. The majestic energy directly suppresses my mana, how about you? Rely on this toy gun. However, Li Feng also knows that he is a little anxious. Fury, what if Mr. Agent sends someone to follow him all day, so he doesn't make trouble? With a curl of his mouth, Li Feng said in a disdainful tone, it's not that simple, I change a tongue twister that a 3-year-old child can say, are you learning it again? 3 years, there is a kind of you who are 4 years old. Fury put down his pistol and heard Li Feng's tongue twister with a twitch of his mouth. Red carp and green carp in the donkey. ... Ma Dan, is this a tongue twister for your 3-year-old child? Looking at Fury's little bit of resentment, Li Feng's heart is refreshing. It's even cooler than drinking iced Coke while blowing on the air conditioner in the summer. It's finally revenge for studying English for 2 years, or revenge on Director Shield. Thinking that he was forced to stay in Chinatown to learn English at the beginning, Li Feng felt dizzy and weak in his limbs. Let me learn English. It also allows you to learn a foreign language, and it is the most difficult Chinese to learn. Think of the broad and profound Chinese, just take the word "I." For men, you can use the word I. For men, you can use the word I. For women, you can use the word I. The rough people use as, the literati use xiaoke, the official is the official, the common people use the lieutenant, the elderly use the old man, the opposite is referred to as the lower, and the lower is referred to as the seat. Looking at your crude English, just an I to describe yourself. With a smile on his face, Li Feng pushed away the muzzle on his forehead because of Fury rage, and signaled Fury to beware of the gun in his hand. Don't wipe the gun and waste the bullets. He said, want to know all my secrets? Learn slowly. Chinese go to you. Li Feng got up and looked out the window, and said mysteriously, believe me, we will meet again in the future. It's not time to know who I am. Fury is a little displeased, but there is nothing he can do with Li Feng. The alien can become his colleague, boss, he has no idea who he can trust at the moment, he can only think about waiting for the end of this matter, and he is in person. Investigate the identity of the other party. As for imprisoning Li Feng, Fury just thinks about it. First of all, Li Feng did not commit a crime and he has no right to imprison the other party. Secondly, from the reactions of Carol and Talos, Fury can see that Li Feng is not like his appearance with a small belly. Weak scum without the power to bind chickens. Outside the window, Carol, who had just recovered a part of his memory, couldn't understand who he was, whether it was Carol Danfoss, the flight member on Earth, or Foss, the Kree warrior. Now Carol's mood can be imagined, and naturally Talos still feels disgusted that she is still forcing her to help do things. Fortunately, Maria said with a certain face, your name is Carol Danfoss, you are the person recorded in the black box, risking your life to do the right thing. You are my best friend. In the end, in Maria's heartwarming words and warm embrace, Carol understood what she should do. At dusk, the restoring people once again gathered in the living room to discuss where the energy core is in Lawson's laboratory. Carol, those numbers are not coordinates, but energy vectors. Maria, this is taught in middle school physics. To be honest, Li Feng, who has always regarded himself as a background wall and silently leaned on the wall to eat bread, is amused at the so-called chief scientist of Skrull that he did not understand with a blank expression, and expressed sadly. Especially I didn't understand. As a traveler who has never received any memory of the original body, let alone a physics class in American middle schools, I don't even know the year and month when my body was produced by my mother. I don't know, should I express guilt to those same soul-wearing travelers? After all, I am ashamed of you. The living room meeting ended in Screwed, where the chief scientist stated that he could use a hammer screwdriver to convert the plane Carol stolen from the Joint Space Agency and the Air Force into a spaceship. Li Feng followed the chief scientist with a curious look. He wanted to see how the other party was so cowhide and transformed an airplane into a spaceship. Not to mention installing a gravity device on the airplane, just say how you are a flight crew in space. The supply of oxygen is a problem. As for whether someone will experience airsickness or altitude sickness when flying into space, Li Feng is not worried. Let's see who is going to space this time. Carol and Talos will not say much to those who have been working in outer space all year round. They have long been accustomed to the space environment. Maria is a veteran of the Air Force. Flight height is not a problem for her physical fitness. Finally, there is Fury. The ghost knows what training this guy has received. Anyway, he does not wear a spacesuit to go to space, which means he has no pressure. As for Li Feng, he is also on the list of members who went to Lawson Lab. The reason is that the non-chief said that Austin already knows too much, and knowing more is nothing. Anyway, Fury has only one purpose, which is don't let the Austin kid leave his sight, let alone sleep. He has to stare at the big tub, in case Li Feng takes the opportunity to escape. Li Feng touched his forehead, thinking that he wouldn't be airsick in his previous life. In this life, he should, probably won't be airsick. It was just the first time he took a plane that could fly out of the Earth. I don't know how to experience it. In this way, I hope it's a trip like the trip. In the backyard, Li Feng looked blankly at the chief scientist using a grinder to polish parts to refit the plane. For a long time, Li Feng, who really didn't understand, hit a hate and turned and left. Ma Dan. I can't afford to hurt without education, I didn't understand at all. Anyway, the other party's modification is not magic at all. Yes, not magic, but I am magician, don't understand what's wrong, am I proud? Fury still wants to see how the chief scientist of Skrull modified the plane with his bare hands, but Li Feng was so sleepy that he was ready to go back to his room to sleep. What he could do, he could only reluctantly follow Li Feng one step at a time. Go back to the room and sleep. What is the relationship between the Skrulls and the chameleon on Earth? The same body is green, the only difference is that the chameleon is color shifting, and the screw is shape-shifting. Fury touched his chin, thinking, when will we collect the genes of the Skrulls and the genes of the chameleons? Maybe the chameleon will evolve for hundreds of millions of years in the future, and it may not necessarily be suddenly one night after a lifetime. In particular, it takes one night to convert an aircraft that can only fly in the atmosphere into a space fighter with a certain amount of firepower. Anyway, Li Feng, who was preparing for a morning run in the early morning, was standing in front of the space fighter with his brain buzzing. He swears that what he saw was absolutely an illusion. This was by no means the result of a busy night by the chief scientist who didn't even know physics in middle school. There are absolutely unknown things that have happened. For a long time, Fury, who was standing behind Li Feng gnawing bread, pushed Li Feng and said, "Mr. Little Belly, welcome to this space summer camp. I hope this summer camp organized by aliens will give you a pleasant space trip." He lowered his head and touched his own belly. Li Feng felt a little melancholy. Small belly, small belly, if I don't exercise but sit in front of the computer all day and grow up like you, it's fine, but I obviously exercise every day. Why are you not willing to leave me? To be honest, I am against you looking for another new love. Really, I dare to swear to the headlights of the fighter. During this space trip, Fury insisted on bringing Ku on the plane. He didn't care if it was a ghost-eating animal or not. He only knew that Talos and Li Feng were afraid of this cute cat. The two of them have not yet. It is necessary to take precautions before gaining his trust. Halfway through the flight, Talos couldn't help reminding Fury, who put the elemental eater on his lap and teased him, "I advise you not to put this creature on your lap to play, it's too dangerous." Fury bluntly answered that he did not trust Talos to take the cute cat to defend himself, which made him somewhat helpless. Is this a question of trust or not? This thing can easily swallow all of us, isn't it? Maria, who was sitting in the passenger seat, asked what she had been curious about. Can you change anything you want? Talos. It depends on what it becomes. Maria. Can the filing cabinet change? Talos is a little confused. Does the filing cabinet have genes for him to copy? Who knows whether the gene of the filing cabinet is a double helix or what structure? Now, what did he do when he became a file cabinet? He is the commander of the dignified Skrulls. Is he missing the one or two file cabinets? Fury. Where's the Venus flytrap? I bet you can't change it. If you change it, I will immediately give you $50. Li Feng, who was sitting honestly in the back row, couldn't help but laugh. Hearing what Maria and Fury asked, Maria was purely curious, and Fury, hee, this guy's mind is not simple. Fury knows that the Skrulls can only become genetic creatures, so he wants to know if the opponent can become a plant. If the opponent can only become a human being, it would be nice to say. It's a great doubt to ask one by one. After all, the Skrulls can only copy the short-term memory of the other party. This is the flaw. It would be troublesome if the Skrull was able to become a plant. When people hid in the forest, he couldn't find the other person's figure. He couldn't grab a suspicious plant and ask if you were a skull, right? And what would others think of him? Pick him up and send him to a mental hospital? Or to catch a screw who turned into a plant and burn a forest? This is too costly. I wonder if everyone is responsible for protecting the environment. It is also troublesome for the other party to turn into a bonsai and stay in his office. If the other party knows the password of his bank account one day, all his little money will fly away. But Li Feng turned his eyes at Taro's with a little disdain. If he can say that he can also shapeshifting, there is shapeshifting magic in Barstow's magic book, but Li Feng's temporary mastery is not proficient, which leads to too many flaws. One could tell that Li Feng was wearing a rubber mask. As for turning the Skrull into a filing cabinet, Li Feng said that if Talos really wants to be able to change, the other party should not call himself Skrull, and directly say that he is a descendant of the great sage or Erlang, and change his name to Talos' son, or Talos. Ross Young is ready. Li Feng's mouth-covering laughter made Fury turned his head and said, "Oh, it seems that some people here know the old bottom of the Skrull people." At this time, Carol reminded that the plane would accelerate away from the Earth and asked everyone to buckle their seat belts. While buckling himself on the seatbelt, Fury asked Li Feng, "Mr. Belly, is the seatbelt on your seat long enough? As long as you tell me who you are, I will lend my seatbelt, you." Pointing to Talos, Fury continued, "Or talk about the race of the Skrulls, I also borrow a seatbelt from you." This question is a bit vicious. As long as Li Feng talk about the characteristics of the Skrulls casually, Fury will know that someone has known the existence of aliens. It doesn't matter if he doesn't answer. With his senior agent's eyesight, Li Feng can also tell whether he doesn't want to answer this question or he really doesn't know. It's just that Fury didn't expect that. Li Feng just rolled his eyes and covered his face without speaking. Li Feng didn't believe it anymore. Fury could still see the expression on his face through the palm of his hand. At the moment, the space fighter flew out of the Earth and entered the Earth's orbit. Fury looked at Li Feng thoughtfully, then turned to the space. "What about the laboratory? Why is it so dark? Could it be that the laboratory is as dark as my face, so dark that I can't see it without lights?" Carol was just stunned, thinking of stealth technology instantly, and cracked the stealth device of Dr. Lawson's protection laboratory. Seeing the Kree cruise ship suddenly appeared, Carol's mouth rose slightly. In the memory that she didn't know the truth or not, Dr. Lawson was a Kree who opposed the war. The Kree cruise ship that emerged suddenly showed that Dr. Lawson was indeed a Kree from the side. It further proved that she is indeed a native of the Earth. "Can you know who you are, what you want to do in the future, and is there better news than this?" The fighter plane slowly docked into the cruise ship, and Taros could not wait to step off the fighter plane to look for his family. On the way, Taros picked up a baseball on the ground, and couldn't restrain the excitement in his heart. He couldn't help but speed up and move on. Soon, a group of people walked to the hall where Tesseract was stored. Li Feng speeded up his pace and walked in front of Tesseract. He stretched out his hand to remove the luminous Rubik's Cube. The corners of his mouth twitched faintly before handing Tesseract to Carol. "As I judged at the beginning, all I can do is hold the Rubik's Cube for a few seconds." Although Li Feng only touched the Rubik's Cube for a few seconds, he already knew that Space Gem was too high level for his rookie magician. Not to mention using the energy of the Rubik's Cube, he couldn't even extract a little energy for his own use. If it is used forcibly, he will only be torn into pieces by the Space Gem's tyrannical energy and sent to all parts of the universe, or even the soul is torn apart. This is also the reason why Li Feng knew that he could get the Space Gem on the Kree cruise ship, but was thinking about how to leave and did not want to participate in the Captain Marvel vs. Kree incident. Since the Rubik's Cube is a tasteless to him at the moment, Li Feng has no interest in whose hands the Rubik's Cube is kept safer, and this is not the only opportunity to get the space gem. As for the 6 infinite gems in the Marvel world, the space gem has the most appearances, and it is also the easiest gem to get. When Carol took over Tesseract, Li Feng, who was always concerned about the energy of the Rubik's Cube, showed a bit of bitterness. Carol deserves to be the protagonist. Before he fully touched the Rubik's Cube, the energy in the body and the Rubik's Cube were distant. Roar should respond. The mana from my hard practice has grown as much as Carol holding the Rubik's Cube in just a few seconds. The most annoying thing is that Carol still doesn't know that his energy is soaring. By the way, Tesseract will not be prepared to follow Carol's surname. Look at the licking dog that actively sends energy. If Carol has been holding the space gem, maybe space gem will really have the same surname as Carol in a few years. With Fry focusing his attention on the steaming coffee, Li Feng quietly walked to the entrance of an aisle, waiting for the arrival of Yang Raj, the Cree, to drive away instantly. Now that they are here, how can you leave this cruise ship without picking up some good points? As Talos called out to the tribe, the screws walked out of the dark one by one, and Carol instantly understood that Talos was not just looking for a lightspeed engine to find a new home, he was still looking for his family. Li Feng complained about the difference between Taurus's cry and Tarzan, while paying attention to the entrance of the hall, only waiting for Yang Rog to appear and ran into the passage. Yang Rog did not disappoint Li Feng, and soon led his subordinates to the lobby. When the hall door opened, Li Feng disappeared in front of Yang Rog. Yang Rog turned his head and glanced at his men, and motioned for an ordinary team member to capture Li Feng who had just escaped. As for the people left on the scene, he didn't think that these Skrulls and Earthlings had the power to resist him, even if not even Carol. Yang Rog turned on the stance props on his wrist and directly caused Carol to collapse to the ground. He ordered the elite team members to escort Carol and let her connect to the Supreme Leader for brainwashing. The ordinary team members searched for SK, who was hiding on the cruise ship. Lu people and Li Feng. It's strange to say that someone has been sent to hunt down Li Feng. Why hasn't the soldier found Li Feng? This group of elites would only think that Li Feng was too able to hide, and would not think that the soldier who pursued Li Feng had already received a box of lunch, or that his whole body was stripped. No way. Who makes Li Feng poor? He has been greedy for the armor of carry soldiers for a long time. Li Feng thought that since these clothes can change the color through energy, they can also use mana to change the color or shape. After all, mana it's also a kind of energy. It's a pity that when Li Feng stripped off the armor of this poor soldier, he realized that he was thinking too much. The armor of ordinary soldiers didn't have Carol's high level, and there was no ability except a little defense. In fact, this is also normal, just like ordinary soldiers on the Earth can wear weapons like special forces. Don't you know that special forces weapons are expensive in addition to being advanced? To change all the soldiers into the equipment of the elite troops, you have to die of the carry people. He spat at the Kree soldier who was killed by a magic playing card of his own, and Li Feng, who dropped the armor, checked the Kree's gun and muttered, "Unlucky, it looks like I have to wait for Carol to kill. The elites are going to pick up some cheap." The corner of Li Feng's mouth was slightly tilted, sensing the energy in the weapon of the nearby Kree, and he said to himself, "But before that, even if I have a plan of suspended animation, I have to save the non-chief and leave him with me." It's a good impression of the righteous side. Carol, who was taken to a secret room, was forcibly connected with the supreme head of the Kree and was ready to brainwash without the strength to struggle. However, Carol was not easy to provoke. After chatting with the Supreme Lord, after a few chats, at the same time, he acted as if he didn't listen, chanting the 8 scriptures, and attacked the Supreme Leader with his fists. If it weren't for at the moment Carol fell into the Supreme Leader's turf, maybe Carol could really support each other. After that, the bad guys died in the drama. The Supreme Leader played Carol's memory, which not only reminded Carol of all the memories, but also did not notice that Carol's distant tesseract glowed and heated, sending his own energy far away. Teleport to Carol. On the other side, Li Feng, who was hiding in the corner, looked at the 3 Kree soldiers guarding Talos. Although Kree's guns were good in recoil, sound and power, they wanted to kill 3 people at once. Li Feng feels that his magic playing cards are much more reliable. At least the playing cards can fly silently, and they can fly out 3 cards at a time and kill 3 soldiers at the same time. In the cell, Talos watched 3 playing cards flying out of the corner behind the 3 soldiers. They accurately hit the faces of the 3 soldiers and exploded, killing the 3 Kree soldiers on the spot. Then there was the guy who couldn't be copied by himself, holding a playing card in one hand, scratching his head in one hand and walking in front of him, looked at the button next to the cell door, and said, "Taros, how do you turn this thing?" Talos smiled slightly, and while teaching Li Feng how to open the door, he slandered in his heart, I knew this guy was not an Earthling. How could an Earthling shoot a card that could explode in his hand?" As soon as the prison door opened, Talos turned into a Kree while picking up a weapon from the ground and said, "We have to save the 2 Earthlings." 2 Earthlings? Do you have any misunderstandings? Are Carol and I not humans on Earth? Regardless of his previous life or his present life, the Lord is a Han Chinese on Earth, isn't it? Rolling his eyes, Li Feng threw the weapon in his hand to a screw. Li Feng, who had never practiced shooting, said that he was not used to this thing. As a magician, his playing cards are more suitable for the identity of magician. Definitely, considering that Talos will live on the Earth for a long time, Li Feng specifically asked Talos to conceal that he is a magician, at least until he is strong. He still insists on the route of quiet development. Although Talos wondered how Li Feng claimed to be an Earthling, he still had a good impression of Li Feng, who had saved his life, and nodded and agreed to Li Feng's request. Li Feng disguised as a prisoner and was escorted by Talos, who was disguised as a Kree, to Farah's side. It can only be said that the Kree people are too confident in their energy handcuffs, or are too arrogant about their own strength, so they only let the 2 Kree soldiers escort Maria and Fury to the tarmac, preparing to take the 2 of them. Throw it into space. In this case, it is a waste of Li Feng's painstaking efforts if he does not show his excellence. I saw Li Feng, who was pretending to be a prisoner, approach the 2 soldiers head-on, and walked past the front of the team. When a soldier was holding a cage of the elemental devouring beast in his hand, Li Feng faintly blinked at Furui and waited for Li Feng to walk to the soldier in Oshio. She slammed his boxing on the opponent's temple. While Li Feng shook his fist, Furui also kicked the opponent's mail key, kicking the opponent to the ground. As for the other soldier who was directly killed by Talos, when the soldier who was fallen down by Li Feng and Flo was ready to get up, Talos raised his gun and filled the opponent's chest with a shot. Flo backed his hands roasted in the energy handcuffs, turned his head and winked at Li Feng behind him, and said, "Look, how happy we are working together. If we deepen our connection, maybe we can have a better understanding. I wanted to get my information before I escaped. Should I praise you for being too dedicated?" As he opened Fury's handcuffs, Li Feng said, "That sentence, wait until you learn tongue twisters to come and ask me questions, definitely, next time it won't be a red carp or a green carp in a donkey." After unlocking the handcuffs, Li Feng patted Fury on the shoulder and said, "Young man, I am optimistic about you, go back and study Chinese." Fury was a little confused. It was not that Li Feng asked him to learn Chinese, but that Li Feng went straight into a passage to leave after helping him to unfasten the handcuffs. Obviously, he was not planning to leave the cruise ship with him. Flo turned his head and asked Talos, "I'm starting to like this guy, do you know where he wants to go? Maybe I can help him." "Help? I'm afraid I want to find out who Austin is. What do I want to do?" With a little contempt in his eyes, Talos pointed to his green face, shook his head and said, "You think I, an alien who has just arrived on Earth for a few days, will be familiar with an Earthling that the other side will take my heart and lungs to me? Tell me." Fury was unable to refute this, and shrugged. Fury said, "Now take your people to the fighter plane, and return to Earth to talk about other things." At this time, the equipment in the cruise ship was attacked by a stream of external energy, and the lights of the entire cruise ship flickered several times like an unstable voltage. Li Feng, who was hiding in the corner as the crowd eating melons, was happy at first. He knew that Captain Marvel was officially on the scene and was about to kill in the cruise ship. Then he was taken aback. Li Feng obviously perceived that this force appeared after he passed through himself. Growth, and still more than half of the growth. Li Feng grinned, secretly happy. It is not the increase in mana, but the increase in the upper limit of mana by more than half, which is equivalent to my potential increased in the energy shock just now. And this is a good thing. Or find a chance to let Carol explode a few times. I don't ask too much. Just push my potential to the current level of Ancient One. It can only be said that Li Feng is too greedy. He is not satisfied with the current benefits, and the benefits this time are far more than Li Feng thought. Just like in the game, the blue bar for level 1 magician is 100, the blue bar for level 2 magician is 200, and the blue bar for level 3 magician is 300. And Li Feng, the first level magician, has grown the blue bar to 150, and when it becomes second, the blue bar will be 300, and he directly owns the blue bar of the third level magician. Although Li Feng's spells released at level 2 are still level 2, how many spells can be released by mana? And the more mana, the faster the mana recovery speed, otherwise the recovery speed of all levels of magician is the same. The first level magician means that he has recovered 100 points of mana. What about the 100 level magician? Can you only see a little bit of mana with a low mana gauge? Li Feng, who didn't know how much he had gained, heard the sound of Carol fighting with Yang Rog, and quietly came to the vicinity of the battlefield. Hiding in the distance watching Carol show off his power to beat the so-called elite team into falling water dogs, Li Feng always felt that there was something missing around him, such as popcorn and coke. Watching live is much more interesting than watching it in a movie theater. It is definitely more dangerous. Just as one of the elites found Li Feng's figure, grinning and rushing towards Li Feng brandishing a long green knife. Li Feng raised his brows and turned around and ran to a corner. He now prefers to fight around the corner more and more. This kind of enemy can't see him, but his mental power can easily lock the opponent's figure. In addition, the poker card is not a straight flight. It can also turn and attack the opponent's face on the other corner under Li Feng's control. The fireball that exploded directly on the face of the elite fighter made his mind buzzing, and his actions were all stunned. Li Feng didn't want to waste such a good opportunity. He sighed while lacing playing cards with both hands at the same time. The elite's equipment really did out of the ordinary. There is no such thing as a protective item. The playing cards that ordinary soldiers can directly kill can only stun their opponents with the armor of these people. Li Feng walked to the dizzy Kree elite, picked up the long knife dropped by the opponent, pierced the opponent's eye cleanly, and killed him. Looking at the long knife in his hand, Li Feng grinned and said, "How much do carry people like green? The uniform is green, and the weapon has a green laser. Is red not good? Yellow is not good. What? The knife is a good knife, but Li Feng feels that he still needs to change it, at least not to let the knife shine green, otherwise he always feels that the shadow area in his heart is expanding when he uses it." Dragging the carry elite who had been killed by himself aside, Li Feng closed his eyes and perceived the ability of the long knife to conduct mana. In Li Feng's eyes, since this long knife can fill the blade with energy, it can naturally be transformed into magic. Long knife. After a while, Li Feng grinned and carried the long sword behind him, only to find a suitable magic material to make a magic change. As for the protective clothing on the elite, Li Feng was naturally not polite, and directly stripped the opponent into a blue and black naked man. Li Feng tied the left foot and right hand of the naked man in front of him, and tied his right foot and left hand behind him, while muttering, "This guy is not a hybrid, right? People in Kree are all blue and barking, how come? Are you blue and black now?" With a thick rope tied around the naked man's waist and hung in the air, Li Feng sent his mana to the dead naked man. He didn't cut off the opponent's head before, just to avoid destroying the corpse, because he was going to try the spells learned in Otherworld and the spells that communicate with the undead. This kind of spell actually has many shortcomings. For example, the dead body needs to be intact to summon the opponent's soul projection back to the body. Otherwise, Li Feng is struggling to tie and hang it. It's safer to cut off his head and cast the spell directly. Don't let Li Feng bully if you don't have your hands and feet. As the mana entered the naked man's body, I saw the naked man turning his head to look around him blankly, and when he saw Li Feng who looked at him satirically, the naked man instantly recalled who killed him, and he wondered if he was dead. How did he come back to life, and want to break free of the rope that bound him, so that he punched Li Feng in the face? Seeing that the spell can be used in the Marvel world, Li Feng stretched out his right hand and snapped his fingers to end the spell, letting the naked man's soul project back to where he should go. After the spell experiment was completed, Li Feng let out a sigh of relief, frowning and bending over to pick up the naked man's armor, and put it in his hand for a random operation. For a long time, Li Feng thought silently whether he should wear this tights. First of all, although the clothes are strong in defense, they are really not suitable for magic to be changed into a robe. This thing conducts energy too poorly, and more depends on the clothes originally. Material for defense. The second is to think about anyone who has seen magician cast spells in tights. Whether it's a novel or a movie or TV series, magician always appeared in a loose robe. In the end, Li Feng folded the dress and put it in his shoulder bag. Anyway, the defense was good, and it was great to wear it as underwear in the future, with a robe on the outside. Carol's battle and Li Feng's spell experiment did not affect Fury's escape with the few remaining skulls. On the fighter plane, Talos frowned and looked at the door that was about to close, and said to Fury, "Where's Austin? Should we wait? Leaving him on the cruiser will undoubtedly die." Fury feels a pity. He hasn't figured out what Li Feng's identity is, but the soldiers' instinct tells him that they should leave as soon as possible, especially since Carol can blast off the hull of the cruise ship after his whole body glows, and stay on. In addition to being chased by the Carey people, it is also important to be careful that Carol dismantled the cruise ship. It was not the time to wait for Li Feng's return. Moreover, the agent's intuition told him that there is definitely a problem with Li Feng, and maybe Li Feng can return to Earth alive and well. Shaking his head to Talos, Fury ordered Maria to return to Earth as soon as possible. As the commander of Screw, Talos knew that Fury's choice was the most correct at the moment. He couldn't put the whole team in crisis because of someone, but he still felt a little guilty, looking at the door that kept closing. "I prayed silently in my heart, 'My friend Austin, I hope you can survive.'" The moment the hatch closed, the Carey chasers also arrived, and shot Talos, who was still praying for Li Feng, on the shoulder. "Maiden, let me pray first that I can live." Through the window, Li Feng quietly watched Maria leave in a fighter jet, and then watched two small spaceships fly to the Earth. The corner of Li Feng's mouth curled, and he said to himself, "Why did you leave? I still want to use illusion to let Fury see me and feign death. I blame the blue-black Kree just now for ruining my plan." Scratching his head, Li Feng happily ran to the place where Carol had fought before. There was an elite squad of Kree people lying there, with a large number of high-tech equipment left, which are all weapons that can apply energy. If the magic is changed, it will save Li Feng a lot of money to buy magic materials. By the way, there are really not many magic materials on Marvel Earth, and most of them are collected or monopolized by Kage. Like Li Feng, a wandering magician who has no money, and no money, wants to buy some magic materials. Where to sell it? Fortunately, Li Feng can smuggle materials from other worlds, otherwise Li Feng should join Kage in a cost-effective way. Wrap the daggers, armor, clothes, wrist guards and other materials scattered on the ground with tablecloths. Li Feng opened the portal with a smile and went straight back to the suburbs of New York on the Earth. An orange portal suddenly appeared on an unmanned highway in the suburbs of New York. After Li Feng came out of the portal, he probed to see if anyone nearby noticed him. After confirming that there was no one nearby, Li Feng glanced at the large package behind him, touched the only $10,000 in his pocket, and muttered, "It is too conspicuous to take these alien weapons and equipment to the streets, plus the practice of magic requires quietness. In the environment of the country, I am still honestly looking for a place in the suburbs to digest this gain, and when I turn my potential into strength, I am going to other worlds for a wave." Touching the tights of the elite team of Kree, Li Feng twitched his mouth and thought, "In order to cross to Otherworld, there is a piece of clothing to wear, and the tights are tights. Authentic naked wearing Otherworld, is it easy for me? Li Feng, who had been walking along the highway, looked up at the fireworks produced by Carol easily destroying the Ronin battleship in space. He searched the memory in his mind and walked to a lake in the distance, hoping to sort it out in the lake. Messy hairstyle, and a body that is about to breed lice. I can't blame Li Feng for not being clean, but he went all the way to Louisiana and prepared to buy a RV. After he took care of his personal hygiene, who knew he would be involved in the Captain Marvel incident inexplicably, and even more outrageous as Fury, a perverted agent, Shang-El followed Li Feng to express that he had endured it, but he asked for Rui to take a bath for free throughout the whole process. Li Feng said that he couldn't bear it. No way. Li Feng, who wandered all the way in the wilderness, could only leave the Kree's cruise ship to solve personal hygiene. Maybe God thinks that Li Feng is not sloppy enough, and he can further completely evolve into a tramp on the street. Approaching the small lake, Li Feng silently watched two men in the distance set up a big tent together, and a younger woman with a child playing by the lake, leaving one with a younger age. The big woman is fiddling with the charcoal grill in front of the grill. After touching his itchy scalp, the corners of Li Feng's eyes twitched slightly. I just want to take a bath. Why should someone come to visit for free? Looking at the lake that was clean enough to be used as a mirror, Li Feng silently walked to the other side of the lake, preparing to stay away from this house. No, it was a family member who took a bath while it was dark. The older women playing with the barbecue saw Li Feng, who was like a tramp, approaching the lake, and subconsciously shouted to the older men who set up the tent, "Ben." Ben lowered his head and continued to knock the fixed rope of the tent into the soil, and asked, "May, what's the matter? Is the barbecue ready?" The younger man who originally looked up at May, followed May's gaze, and saw Li Feng approaching the lake with a large package and slippers. He subconsciously patted Ben on the shoulder and motioned Ben to look at Li Feng. The kind-hearted Ben glanced at Li Feng, got up and shouted, "Hey, young man, do you need help?" Originally, Li Feng didn't want to talk to the two families who came to this camping. He just thought that he didn't have a razor by his side, and he didn't have the craft of shaving with an alien dagger. Looking at the large and small bags of food around May, Li Feng estimated that the two families are planning to live a camping life for 2 days. After thinking about going to Ben, he said in an uncertain tone, "If I can, I want to borrow a shave knife." The man next to originally wanted to remind Ben to be careful of this tramp, but he didn't expect Ben to offer help directly. He felt a little displeased, but didn't say anything because he understood Ben's nature. Seeing Li Feng approaching himself and suggesting what help he needs, Ben walked towards Li Feng and said to the younger man behind him, "Richard, help me get my razor. I will guide him to stay away from little Peter, so as not to give birth." What's wrong? Obviously, the kindness belongs to the kindness, but it is not a bad person, and there must be some precautions. After a while, Li Feng and Ben walked to the lake. Richard took Ben's razor and walked into Li Feng and passed the razor to Li Feng, who was still washing his face. Li Feng took the razor and glanced at Richard's bulging waist. "It's probably a pistol for self-defense. How can I drop it? Doesn't I look like a good person? I just saved the earth, don't you know? Although the credit is mainly Carol, even if I used soy sauce the whole time, I personally killed several alien villains." Li Feng smiled. "Thank you, my name is Austin. How do the two gentlemen call Roar?" "Ben Parker." Ben smiled and introduced himself, then pointed to Richard and said, "This is my brother, Richard Parker." Li Feng. This will not be the parents of Spider-Man, a good neighbor in New York, and the Uncle Ben who said, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." By the way, Ben looks a lot younger now, but it is still kind. Regarding the two women in the distance, Li Feng felt something was wrong. According to Ben's age, Aunt May's age should be the older one, but Aunt May in the film is a fashionable beauty. What's the situation? Is it because I think it's bad? This is not Peter Parker's family. Or is it Aunt May? The older one is little Spider-Man's mother. Seeing that, Li Feng looked at his wife was a little stunned, thinking that the tramp Li Feng was hungry and was attracted by the smell of food in front of his wife. Looking at May with a happy face, he said to Li Feng with a smile, "When you shave your beard, I will ask you to eat something. Believe me, you will like my wife's craftsmanship. May's cooking skills are first-rate. There is another name. So this is really the little Spider-Man family camping out, and that older woman is really Aunt May. What's the situation? Say good fashion beauty. Is it possible that Aunt May couldn't bear to be lonely after Ben passed away, so she went to lift the face and get a plastic surgery and exercise so that she could turn shapeshifting from the inside out? Wait, there are a lot of versions of Spider-Man movies, and there are several in the Marvel universe. Couldn't the Marvel world I'm in isn't the world of purple sweet potatoes? But another Marvel world. Li Feng felt that his brain was a little messy, and he almost shaved himself when shaving. Fortunately, Li Feng had been shaving by the lake. Ben and Richard found nothing unusual behind him. After a meeting, Li Feng, who had shaved his beard, returned the razor to Richard and asked tentatively, "Mr. Richard, I think you seem to be familiar with you. It seems that I have met you somewhere. Let me think about it." I don't know if you know someone named Connors. I vaguely remember seeing your picture at Connors. Richard looked at Li Feng up and down, nodded slightly and said, Curtis Connors. He is my friend. Dr. Lizard Connors. So this is the Marvel world with the supernatural Spider-Man version. Although he knows which version of Marvel world he is in, Li Feng is still a little confused, because he has watched Women's Federation 3 and Women's Federation 4 in the Next Door world, and what is the difference between the current world and the Next Door Marvel world? Li Feng said that I don't know, maybe except the Spider-Man plot is the same, maybe it's different. Ma Dan. Regard him, anyway, I rely on countless worlds, as long as I become stronger, even if the purple sweet potato essence can be killed from the next door. Hey, there seems to be purple sweet potato essence in this world, you say two purples, what kind of sparks will the meeting of potato spirits create? Are you crying with tears in your hands, spitting out the hardships of the past few years, or just pinching them when you meet? Even Ben's invitation to dinner. Li Feng didn't want to get involved with the little Spider-Man family too much, and after waving goodbye to Ben, he only walked to the other side of the lake. As night began, Li Feng planned to take a bath after eating the dry food. He saw that he was carrying a disposable paper tray with a piece of steaming beef coming towards him. Li Feng blinked suspiciously and asked, Mr. Ben, is there anything wrong? Ben glanced at the shoulder bag behind Li Feng and the clean change of clothes on the ground. He handed the steak to Li Feng and said, Sorry, I thought you were a tramp before. Are you on a hiking trip? After receiving the steak, Li Feng glanced at the clothes on the floor, and then at the big package wrapped in extraterrestrial tights, and found that Uncle Ben could not have these green clothes. He said with a sigh of relief, Yes, hiking, but you too, I saw it. I didn't have much experience when I went out for the first time. I forgot to bring my razor. Ben sat next to Li Feng and said with a smile, Huh. Isn't it just growing into a handsome guy in regret, confusion, and forgetting something? Li Feng took a bite of the juicy steak and gave Ben a thumbs up. He praised Aunt May for her good craftsmanship and praised the guy who instinctively saw that he was a handsome guy, showing that he was really insightful. Ben, do you have any destination? Li Feng was stunned. He really didn't think about this problem. He just walked in a random direction, didn't want to communicate with people, didn't want to set foot in the human group society, just wanted to find a place where there are few people to develop quietly, that's it. Feeling a little dazed, Li Feng shook his head and said, My parents passed away 3 years ago. I lost my memory in a car accident 2 years ago. I forgot how to speak my English. Until now, I have not recovered my past memories. Where can I remember what's fun nearby? Yes, I just plan to go out and take a look. When you are tired, find a place to settle down. Looking at Li Feng's sloppy look now, I thought that Li Feng should have had a hard time in the past 2 years. After all, he has forgotten the language of basic communication. Can life be hard? Moreover, the uncertainty in Li Feng's words can be heard clearly. He feels that Li Feng is like an outlier and now, full of confusion for the future. With a hint of apology, Ben said sincerely, Sorry. He was confused for a while at his age like Li Feng, but he was not hit as hard as Li Feng. It's just a short-term confusion. This is not a big problem. Since Li Feng has learned English again, it means he can survive the pressure. When Li Feng understands what is meant by opening his eyes, he will think of how much bread he needs for his daily survival. You won't be confused, but after you have a family, you will understand what a sweet burden is. Sharing some life experiences with Li Feng, Ben saw his wife beckoning to him in the distance, indicating that his dinner is ready for him. Ben stood up and patted Li Feng on the shoulder, and said, When you think you can come here in the future? I live in Queens, New York. I have lived there for most of my life, and it feels like the best neighborhood in America. Li Feng was stunned, looked up at Ben, smiled and said, Thank you, I will. Ben waved his hand to say goodbye. After walking a few steps, he suddenly returned, took out the razor from his pocket and handed it to Li Feng, shrugged and said, I almost forgot this little thing. I gave it to you. I have a chance to see you in the future. You are welcome to be a guest at my house. Goodbye, confused little guy. Looking at Ben who was far away, Li Feng rubbed his eyebrows. After being in this world for more than 2 years, Li Feng consciously regarded him as a friend, except that Ancient One treated him like a son. Don't look at the United States advertised that everyone is equal all day, but is it realistic? Haha. Except for Li Feng in Chinatown, he can still feel cordial, and the rest of the outsiders look a little bit contemptuous when he wears slippers all day. What's wrong with my slippers? I used to wear slippers in my previous life. I don't want to say that I'm cool. It's easy to go to bed. It's like you have to take off your shoes and socks. At that time, I slept. After eating the steak silently, Li Feng looked in the direction of this camping again, thinking in his heart, just ask me to eat steak and send a razor to you, share your growing experience with me in the tone of a friend, and invite me. Go to your house, I will save your life, I will leave it as a magician, you have no other way to die except old age. Taking advantage of the night to freshen up, Li Feng lay on the grass with his hands resting on the back of his head and looking up at the starry sky. I don't know why, he heard little Peter in the distance joking and calling out to Father Richard. He always thought of the other one in his mind. The appearance of my own child in the world. I don't know how the little guy is, the first thing I learned is father or mother, it should be mother, after all, I never you around. Wiping his red and moist eyes, Li Feng got up to organize his luggage. How did he sleep, especially the noise in the distance, let alone let him practice magic, and he couldn't even sleep peacefully. In that case, he might as well consciously get off. After walking out for a while, Li Feng felt that his family couldn't see him casting spells before posing, and stretched out his hand to open the portal. Where is the place on the earth where you can magically change longswords, possess magical materials, and learn to forge props? Only Taj. And Taj not only knows that there are aliens in this world, but even the magical creatures living in other lands. Facing the Kree trophies confiscated by Li Feng, he can't even see the expression of surprise. It is the best way to hide these alien tools. Place. Taj, the living room. Ancient One was tasting the tea and pondering the contents of the spellbook word by word. Suddenly, she felt something and looked up in the middle of the drawing room. After a second, an orange portal gradually took shape. Ancient One ignores Li Feng's sharp styling, but looks at the dark suburbs of New York through teleportation, only feeling that the corners of his eyes are constantly beating. Li Feng, who crossed the portal, had the right hands to salute Ancient One. Before he could say a word, Roar heard Ancient One standing up to pour tea with his back facing him, and said, "You opened the portal directly from the suburbs of New York to here." Li Feng scratched his head, nodded and said, "Yes, Master, is there any problem with the portal I used?" "What is the problem?" "The problem is big." Ancient One handed the tea to Li Feng, stretched out his hand to signal Li Feng to sit down and talk slowly, and said, "Although the portal can take us to any place, it has a prerequisite. You need ability to open it. It's like an adult holding the door open. The key can easily open the door, and a person who has not been in the magician field for a long time is more like a human being in childhood. Do you think that giving a child the key has the power to turn the key to open the door? The portal is not a toy lock specifically designed for children." Li Feng held the teacup and said in a daze after thinking about it, "In other words, judging from my mana, my portal can't be opened that far, at most it can be used in the city. This is not right. When I first cast the portal, I opened it to Argentina, thousands of miles away. Could it be that I have special abilities for portal spells? No wonder it has become easier and easier to open the door recently. I thought it was my proficiency in brushing the portal." Ancient One sat back on his seat, raised his eyebrows and said, "Otherwise, if the magician can easily use the portal to reach where he wants to go, I will build 3 portals to New York, Hong Kong and London in the library." It's not for those magicians who are apprentices like you to follow the 3 holy places as soon as possible. Li Feng pinched the tip of his nose. From Ancient One's words, he felt that he could be a little proud. After all, from the time he traveled to the Marvel world, plus the time to travel to other worlds, how long has he been here? It's been less than 3 years. After eliminating the integration problem of the soul and the body in the first 2 years, how long did he really learn spells? Now, he wanted to ask loudly, "Who else can open the portal to any place on Earth? We are different. It seems that I underestimated your understanding of space and your ability to space spells." After complimenting Li Feng, Ancient One glanced at Li Feng's large tablecloth package and said, "And during this time you still have some adventure, I can feel the spell-casting materials in your package. Are you here to be a merchant? Li Feng opened the package with a smile, and told the story about Carol. He pointed to a pile of scattered weapons and clothes and said, "If I can, I want to forge a magic knife and a piece of clothing. The remaining materials are mine. The tuition fee for learning the skills of forging magic props, I wonder if the master agrees." Ancient One glanced at the green clothes, squinted and said, "The equipment of the elite Kree team, maybe I shouldn't just focus on the exotic magical creatures that want to invade the Earth, but should also focus on these aggressive creatures. The alien races, at least aim at those aliens who want to destroy the Earth." Li Feng does not comment on this. The current Frey is afraid that he has already obtained the Kree cruiser. As long as scientists crack some of the cruiser's technology, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s technology reserves will exceed that of most countries on the planet. Even if Ancient One aimed its gaze at these aliens, it just aimed at it, not shot it. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. said that the interior will be extremely decayed in the future, it will still be the same enemy in the face of aliens. After all, Hydra's goal is to rule the Earth. Who will rule an Earth smashed by aliens? I'm afraid even they will become the slaves of aliens. This is not what Hydra wants to see. So in the direction of protecting the Earth, the cooperation between the two parties is not bad, and the protection of the Earth is quite good. Ancient One clapped his hands and let Hamir Magician, who had lost his left hand outside the door, come in and said, "Hamil Magician, put these materials back into the warehouse, and by the way, take some books about forging magic props to Li Feng." After that, Ancient One said to Li Feng again, "You still live in the room you used to live in?" "Oh, yes, I still have something to communicate with you. Considering that the place you used to stay was at night, so you should rest first, or talk now." Li Feng picked up a long knife and a green flustered dress from the package, smiled at Hamir, turned his head and said to Ancient One, "Now, I don't have the mind to sleep now." Ancient One has nothing to say, mainly to see if Li Feng listened to his advice and didn't touch the dark energy easily, and wanted to ask about Basto's time flow change spell. In the past few days when Li Feng left, Ancient One has been studying time with great concentration and has made a lot of results. At least she can now change the flow of time around living creatures. With the appearance of Li Feng's spirit body in the magic ring of Merlin, Ancient One saw that Li Feng's growth potential had increased for a while, and that Li Feng's ability to not only increase in space but also in time during that energy shock it is also deepening. After Li Feng's performance of his practice was over, Ancient One explained the time in a way that Li Feng could understand. This made Li Feng a mistake. He felt that it was time for him to practice the spells related to the passage of time. In the early morning, when the first ray of warm sunlight shone through the window on Li Feng's face, who was sleeping in the form of Big, Li Feng subconsciously covered his ears, hoping to isolate the magician's humming sound outside the window during morning exercises. For a long time, Li Feng got up helplessly and sat on the head of the bed, smothering Heisha's belly. "Isn't magician all quietly practicing magic? What's the matter if you hum and haha yelling slogans all day? Knowing that you understand that you must have a good body to be a magician, and those who don't know think you are a bunch of coolies or just get up when you cock." Coolie. Against the faint dark circles under his eyes, Li Feng held several alchemy basics books on the bedside by Hamir Magician in one hand, and a pot of tea heated by Pyromancer in one hand, dragging slippers, ignoring and looking speechlessly. His own apprentice Phalanx walked straight to the shade of the corner of the tree, sipping tea and slowly flipping through the books in his hands. For a long time, Li Feng, who looked down at the book, suddenly saw a pair of Valto's jumping shoes in front of him. Li Feng raised his head and looked at the book. He continued to read the book and asked, "Modu, what are you looking for me?" Mordu is not familiar with Li Feng, but he knows that Ancient One is good to Li Feng, holding on to the principle of, Ancient One is the sky, Ancient One is the earth, Ancient One is the god and everything to me. Mordu smiled and said to Li Feng, "Master, Ancient One told me that you have the ability of space-like spells. I specifically asked me to teach you the high-end spellcasting skills of portal and mirror space spells." Closing the book, Li Feng got up and asked subconsciously, "Where is the Ancient One Master?" Mordo shrugged and said, "The Supreme Magician has its own responsibilities, and can't always act as a mentor to a little rookie." Reaching out his hand for Li Feng to walk to a quieter practice range, Mordo said, I don't know why Ancient One has fancied you but didn't recruit you into Taj, but I know she wants you to receive Taj's daily spell training. Definitely, your main task at the moment is to quickly use the portal and mirror space. Ancient One to perform its duties. According to you, foreign creatures have invaded the Marvel world. Which eyeless world is it that dare to invade while Ancient One is still alive? Are you not afraid of being hung up by Ancient One and hitting your head to call your mother? Li Feng nodded and said that he understood that Ancient One was saving the earth and he had no time to pay attention to him. He turned his head and looked around, and said uncertainly, "Practice the mirror space here." "Are you sure?" Although the corner of the training ground is not disturbed by many apprentices, it is indeed a good place to practice the portal in Li Feng's eyes, but the mirror space is dangerous, and Mordu is not afraid that when Li Feng displays the mirror space, he will accidentally unlucky someone nearby. The apprentice is also wrapped into the mirror space. If this hapless apprentice is caught between reality and mirroring, it will be over, and he will be dismembered by spatial energy on the spot. Mordu looked at Li Feng with an idiot look, and said, "What do you think?" Definitely teaches you the skills of using portals first, at least to allow you to use them flexibly in battle. After finishing speaking, Mordu kicked the heel of his left foot with the right toe, and pulled out the baseball bat-style magic weapon behind him. While walking around Li Feng, he tossed the baseball shining with magic light in his hand, and said, "Practical combat is the best teacher. Now I'm attacking, you can only use the portal to teleport the baseball I hit for you." The dumbfounded Li Feng stared at the baseball blankly. "I now have to pose whenever I open the door, you let me open the door to take the baseball. You just want to see my handsome face turn into a pig's head. Let's make a discussion. You give me the baseball glove, I promise to take your ball." Mordor only cares what Li Feng thinks, and abandons the baseball high and high, swings the bat in his hand and hits the baseball, letting the baseball fly to Li Feng like a cannonball. Li Feng, who didn't even hear the phrase, beginning, subconsciously turned sideways to avoid the baseball. Turning his head and looking at Li Feng who didn't know where he was flying, he said with a smile, "Aha, you lost the ball. Did today's training end ahead of schedule?" Mordo shrugged, swung the bat in his hand to make a shot, and said, "If I were you, I would learn how to use the portal as soon as possible." When Li Feng saw the magic light flashing from the bat in Mordor's hand, he felt a little uncomfortable. When he heard the teaching air sounds coming from behind him, he dodged the baseball behind him and stared at Mordor, saying, "Yours. A bat and a baseball are a set of magical weapons. Can a baseball return to the bat after being hit?" Mordu hit the baseball in Li Feng's face again, and smiled, "Definitely, otherwise, how can I help you exercise the portal with only one ball? A baseball being knocked into the air is always a straight flight." This is good news for Li Feng. At least he can easily dodge the baseball without opening the door without turning his face into a pig's head. It's just that Mordo obviously didn't want to see Li Feng's handsome face, and the intensity of swinging the bat was getting more and more. As for Li Feng, facing the baseball ball that he likes to hit his face faster and faster, not to mention posing to open the door, it would be nice to be able to avoid the baseball in embarrassment. Near noon, a sweaty Li Feng once again avoided the baseball and let it fly behind him. He quickly turned around and stretched out his left hand to aim at the returning baseball. While turning his right hand, he clearly recalled Mordu's face while turning his brain. He was about to open the door. Let the baseball fly directly to Mordu's face. As a senior magician, Moda knew what Li Feng was going to do when the orange spark appeared in front of him. Use Avalto's jumping shoes to jump into the mid-air. Mordo, as if stepping on the invisible steps, stepped on a few steps and turned to Li Feng's side, while hitting the baseball that passed through the portal to Li Feng. The corner of his mouth slightly tilted up and said, "Now I believe Master Ancient One's evaluation of you, the speed of comprehension of space spells is really good, at least I didn't wear these boots for nothing today." In baseball's straight-line flight, it's easier for Li Feng to open the portal as long as he calculates the time, but the Mordor who puts on the Valto's jumping shoes can appear at Li Feng's unexpected angle at any time. You must know that baseball is attracted by the bat. Yes, after Mordu holding a bat changed his body shape, the flight trajectory of the baseball also changed, so, a straight-line flight baseball. Non-existent. Li Feng didn't expect that Mordu, who had been hitting the ball opposite or behind him, would suddenly appear over his side to hit the ball. In order to prevent the baseball from kissing his handsome face, he could only converge his mind and quickly stretched out his hand to aim at the baseball. With such a short time and distance, it is still a bit difficult to make the portal open to a size that allows people to pass, but how big is a baseball? Just a fist. Li Feng, who had been practicing for a whole morning, successfully opened a fist-sized portal and teleported the baseball in front of him to the back of Mordu's head. Seeing Mordu smiled and stretched out his hand to grab the baseball that attacked him behind his head, Li Feng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I succeeded. Ma Dan. It's not easy, if it weren't for the sling ring to save the mana of the portal. After practicing like this, my mana must be exhausted. Tossing the baseball, Mordu thought inwardly how long he spent using the portal proficiently, and was surprised that Li Feng was able to open the portal proficiently in half a day, and smiled. A success is accidental, so. Before he finished speaking, Mordu abandoned the baseball again and waved his bat toward Li Feng. Grass the grass. Li Feng dodged the baseball sideways, and said to the baseball portal behind him, Brother Black, I have been busy all morning, so let me take a drink and rest and go down. Mordu was above Li Feng, moving to the left and right for a while, as if he was about to dazzle Li Feng, and said, You are called my brother. I definitely want to teach you the height of the portal more seriously. It's only the first step to skillfully use the skill to open the door. What you have to do now is to move the portal after opening the door and teleport the high-speed flight baseball away. As for rest, do you want me to arrange a masseuse for you to relax your whole body and rest? Mordu sarcastically said while knocking the baseball into the air, or do you think he will give you rest time when facing enemies in the future? Restore mana. Masseur. Taj has this service. I want to tell me 2 massage masters. As for the enemy, he won't give me time to rest, but why can't I run? On the way to the press conference, Stark listened to Potts' ear and whispered, Help me check Austin's information. Potts was stunned, then subconsciously looked back at Stark's office, and whispered, Didn't you say that he saved you? Stark nodded slightly and said, But he was a bit too good to me. I always think he wants something else, and Stark recalled why Li Feng didn't take him back to New York in the first time but wanted to arouse his interest in magic. He shrugged and said, Moreover, he and I have only known each other for a long time, uncertain. Potts nodded slightly and said, Well, you are the boss, you have the final say, I will help you when I am busy at the press conference. No, Stark shook his head and interrupted Potts. Go now, I want to get all the information about Austin at the end of the press conference. After that, Stark stepped up to the press conference site, while Potts took a deep breath and then turned and walked into a room. He took out his mobile phone to contact Stark's personal butler Jarvis and asked it to help investigate Li Feng's information. Collecting data is faster and faster than artificial intelligence. After the phone call, Potts hurried to the press conference, hoping to see Stark chatting in front of reporters handsomely, and at the same time praying that Stark would not make any trouble. Although the announcement of Stark's return conference was a bit rushed, the protagonist is also the famous Stark, so many reporters came. In addition, there were also many people who came to satisfy curiosity, among them, some of them were among the reporters. Phil Coulson. In fact, Phil Coulson was confused when he received the news that Stark had returned to China and appeared when the company was preparing to hold a press conference. He wondered how Stark, who had clearly disappeared in Afghanistan, bypassed the monitoring of the airport, station, etc. and appeared in the company of. Could it be history that Stark would fly with a missile he built? Or is it that Stark has actually been imprisoned in New York? So they only got nothing after eating sand in the desert for 3 months. When Stark announced in front of reporters that he was going to close the weapon manufacturing department, Potts rushed to open her mouth in surprise and looked at Stark in disbelief. Her only thought was that her boss should be sent to the hospital to check her brain. The company that produces high-end weapons closes the weapons manufacturing department. What is this not brain pumping? Phil Coulson, who saw Potts appear, looked at Stark in surprise, but now is not the time to solve why Stark closed the weapon manufacturing department. Phil Coulson walked up to Potts and handed a SHIELD business card to him. Potts said, Ms. Potts, I am Phil Coulson, agent from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. I want to know about the disappearance of Stark. Potts was stunned when she heard the full name of SHIELD. She wanted to see the business card that Phil Coulson handed her. With such a long department name, is a small business card enough to print? I know that many departments of the Ministry of National Defense and the CIA have come to me about this matter, but Mr. Stark suddenly appeared at the company half an hour ago, and he stayed in the office with an Asian youth when he came back, so I don't know the specifics. Condition. Asian. Phil Coulson frowned and asked, can you tell me what this Asian youth looks like? Potts glanced at Phil Coulson, thinking what Phil Coulson said is also the National Department, perhaps there is Li Feng's information. Hesitation said, I only know that his name is Austin, do you have his information? Hearing Li Feng's name popping out of Potts' mouth, Phil Coulson's first reaction was to ask She Stark to go to the SHIELD base to be examined by a psychologist to see if She Stark's closure of the weapon manufacturing department was caused by Li Feng's hypnotic ability. If you are referring to the Asian Austin with a small belly, I think we have his profile. He is very dangerous, said Phil Coulson, taking out his cell phone and pressing the number, and said, Sir, Austin appeared, and had contact with She Stark. I suspect that She Stark has been taken by Austin hypnotic ability. I need an expert group to be there at the press conference. Phil Coulson turned to look at Potts and asked, is Austin still in the office? Potts was a little horrified and overwhelmed when he heard that She Stark was being treated by hypnotic ability, and couldn't help but want to drag his boss to the hospital for examination. Hearing Phil Coulson's question, Potts covered his mouth and whispered, yes, he is still in Stark's office. Phil Coulson nodded and asked on the phone, Sir, do you need me to contact Austin? On the other side of the phone, Fury recalled that he had suspected that Li Feng was a commercial spy, and he did not know where to steal the technique for resurrecting the corpse. If Li Feng was really a commercial spy, he is now in a weapon manufacturing company. Li Summit will not steal weapons information easily. Fury ordered without thinking, find Austin as soon as possible. I want to know his purpose of approaching Stark She, and let She Stark check whether the information in the building has been stolen by Austin. After thinking about it, Fury continued, Stark's team continues to search history in Afghanistan, but the goal is changed. After hanging up the phone, Phil Coulson touched the gun in his back and said, Ms. Potts, can you take me to meet Austin? Potts' hesitation for a few seconds, and his boss returned to the company. Potts knew that Stark had positioned Li Feng as a friend. Even if he does not trust this friend now, let an agent who does not know what department he is. Taking away Stark's friend, it's always a bit inappropriate. Phil Coulson seemed to see Potts' hesitation and said, I'm not going to take Austin, I just want to ask a few questions in person, definitely. Phil Coulson turned his head and glanced at Stark, and said, you can tell your boss about taking me to Austin. Potts thought for a while and said, I want the company's security department to send someone to follow you. Phil Coulson nodded slightly and smiled, no problem. When Potts walked to the office with a few security guards and Phil Coulson, Li Feng was sitting at Stark's desk playing computer games board, playing card games that came with the computer. Due to the design of the office, Li Feng sitting in front of the computer is facing the office door. Because of this, Phil Coulson who pushes in the door subconsciously feels that Li Feng is stealing materials such as weapon design drawings in the computer. After all, he doesn't see it. What is displayed on the computer screen? Phil Coulson, who drew his gun and aimed it in one go, shouted, Mr. Austin, thief is not a real profession. Li Feng glanced at Phil Coulson, and then at the half-played cards on the computer screen. What did I steal from me? Did you steal the cards from the computer? How to steal this stuff? You are here to teach me. Phil Coulson, I remember your name. Isn't the efficiency of marinated eggs a bit too high? I just found me when I returned to New York. Potts heard something from the conversation between Phil Coulson and Austin. He walked quickly to Li Feng and looked at the computer. There was nothing on the computer interface except for a standalone card game. Potts felt that he had been deceived, and looked at Phil Coulson with an unpleasant expression, and said, Mr. Agent, please put down your gun, or I will ask the security to ask you not to go out. Phil Coulson could feel that Potts was not joking. He could only put down his gun and said, Ms. Potts, I remind you, this Mr. Austin is a master of hypnotic ability, or can you hypnotic ability with just a snap of your finger? Before Phil Coulson finished speaking, he heard She Stark's teasing voice behind him, you actually need to snap your fingers to be a hypnotic ability person. Stark rolled his eyes to Phil Coulson, and stretched out his hand to signal the security to take the unrelated personnel out of the office. This is his office. Now it's not time for the party, so many people are not crowded in his office. When Phil Coulson was taken out of the office, Stark closed the door and walked to Li Feng and said, I always thought you only need a look to make a hypnotic ability person. After all, novels and movies all describe magician like that, right? Mr. Li Feng. Li Feng smiled, got up and said, it looks like you have found out all my old things. What have you found? Potts was a little confused. Stark didn't seem to be joking when he described magician. He even used novels and movies to affirm Li Feng's career. Obviously, Potts felt that the Asian youth in front of him might be as legendary as possible from the perspective of certain abilities. Like the magician, at least now she believes that Phil Coulson said that Li Feng can relax hypnotic ability. Stark shrugged, can he find out all the information about Li Feng in such a short time? Impossible, so Stark didn't answer Li Feng's question, but instead asked, when will you show me your little toy? Li Feng scratched his head. He couldn't figure out what Stark was thinking, but, leave him alone. As Li Feng took the time converter off his neck, he looked at Potts and smiled, anytime. Do you need to bring Potts with you? It's a rare opportunity. Don't miss it when you pass by. Stark touched the tip of his nose, and he looked a little hesitation. Is it dangerous? Li Fengxi, who understood what Stark was worried about, shrugged and said, walking on the road will cause somehow to be hit by a car, but as long as you follow the rules, I guarantee it is safer than pressing on the road, and it is an unforgettable travel. Quote. Stark raised his brows and said, this analogy is true, so I like to drive on the street to make sure no car hits me. After thinking about it, maybe Stark said that out of safety considerations, he would not play with Potts during this crossing, or he was confident that he could build a time machine in the future. When Potts wanted to play through time in the future, he could use technology to bring waves. Travels through time to play. Thinking of this, Stark stretched out his hand for Li Feng to start performing. On the side, Potts in the cloud and mist that he heard didn't understand what the two were talking about. She just wanted to know if Stark was hypnotic ability. Potts said in a firm tone, I want you to go to the doctor now. Before Potts finished speaking, he watched inexplicably what Li Feng took out of his shoulder bag and put it on Stark, and then put the converter chain around Stark's neck. Just when Potts felt a little inexplicable and wanted to ask what was going on, she saw Li Feng gently turning the time converter, and then she watched in horror as Stark, who had just returned to the company, disappeared before her eyes. Helpless Li Feng could only reach out and open the portal. While maintaining the stability of the portal, he constantly adjusted the angle of the portal so that it flew towards his baseball. He understands Mordor's attitude towards Ancient One. It's not too much to say that what Mordor said to Ancient One will only be carried out as imperial edicts. As long as Ancient One tells him to teach Li Feng well, Mordor will never be perfunctory. Will Li Feng's training to the death and alive? No, it is to train Li Feng to use the portal and mirror space skills proficiently. So in the next few days, Li Feng didn't complain, because he didn't even have time to complain. Except for taking a short break during mealtime, the rest of the time is being dragged out of the room by Mordor, using baseball to train the skills of opening the portal. As for the problem of sleeping at night, it should not be normal for the physical body to sleep and the spiritual body to read a book, have a rest. A few days later, Li Feng felt that apart from not being able to let the portal dance, he had already played various new tricks on the portal. It was like opening a slap big door to grab the high-speed flight baseball, which was already a pediatric operation. Mordor was also satisfied with the training during this period. It is not good if he is not satisfied, because Li Feng sent the baseball directly to the Atlantic Ocean when he faced himself hitting the baseball for the last time, although the baseball would automatically sense the bat and fly back. But it takes time to fly back, and Mordor doesn't know if the baseball over the Atlantic can sense Taj's bat. If it can be sensed, it would be fun. I don't know what impact shield will have if it detects a baseball flying straight from the Atlantic Ocean to the Himalayas, but Mordor doesn't care about it. By the time, he was still afraid that shield would not be successful. Just opening the door at will is enough for shield to look for him for a while. It is said that in Taj, Shield's satellites really can't find him. Is it true that the magic shield covering the sky above, Taj is for dry food? Unless the satellite of shield is modified by magic to see through the magic circle, don't say shield doesn't know where Taj, is. I haven't even heard of Taj, name. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.